What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
3AF. Chapter 51, After killing all competitors, you are Hokage. First order requested. Advertisement. Hiyashi has just returned to the gate of the clan. Then he saw a beautiful figure of painting stepping out from the clan. He took a closer look and saw that it was the elder sister, who was known as Iceberg, in the clan. Not only that, this family sister is already naturally beautiful and elegant. At this moment, she also put on a layer of charming and colorful light makeup. Anyone with a discerning eye can see what she plans to do next. Seeing this, Hyuga Hiyashi sighed secretly in his heart. This clan sister's wish may come true next. See Hiyashi appear in front of me. Hyuga Renua simply asked directly and coldly. Where is he? Hiyashi knew exactly who this he was asking about. Hiyashi has long been accustomed to the cold way of speaking of this Iceberg sister. At this time, he was keenly aware that Hyuga Leonwa's ice-cold speaking speed seemed to be suddenly a few points faster. Hyuga Hiyashi hesitated for a moment, then whispered. Tay, I think we went to Uchiha. Hearing the sound, Hyuga Leon was already cold and pretty face became even colder. Hiss. This inexplicable coldness made Hiyashi shrink again. Feeling the cold chill emanating from his clan sister, Hiyashi could only complain secretly in his heart. He has tried his best. But there was nothing he could do if Uchiha Fusuke didn't want to come. That, sister clan, there are still important matters in the clan, so I will take the first step. Saying that, Hyuga Hiyashi immediately turned around and ran away quickly. After Hiyashi left, Hyuga Renua still just stood there. But if you look closely you can see it. Deep in her eyes as pure as glass, there was a hint of entanglement at the moment. At the same time, her white little hands were already tangled together. She looked into the distance. That is the direction of the Uchiha tribe. He hesitated for a long time. Renka remembered the promise between her and Uchiha Ayako. The thought of this, a trace of disappointment flashed in Hyuga Renua's eyes. Why? She sighed slightly, turned around and returned to the Hyuga tribe again. Then, Miss Hyuga's first going out plan, in more than 10 years ended up failing. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have put on makeup. A confused heartbeat of self-pity suddenly passed away. It's still this night. In addition to the two messages, third generation returns, and Nine-Tails unrest subsides. Another rumor directly detonated the entire Konoha. That is, fourth Hokage Namikaze Minato may be dying soon. And as this piece of gossip spread wildly, the entire Konoha instantly became undercurrents. Original. Fourth Hokage Namikaze Minato is in his prime, and has the full support of third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke. This also makes some people who covet the position of Hokage see no hope, so they naturally settle for peace. But now, with the news that Minato is about to die soon, this group of people who originally thought there was no hope of becoming a Hokage, suddenly saw hope. After all, we all know it. The third Hokage has a lazy personality and has no interest in regaining power in Konoha. Most likely, it is the top management of Konoha who will arrange to select the fifth Hokage to fill the vacancy after the death of fourth generation. Ever since, countless careerists lurking inside Konoha began to take action. Uchiha tribe land. Shortly after breaking up with Fusuke, Uchiha Fugaku was the first to get the news. Without any hesitation, he got up, put on his clothes and walked out. The sleepy Uchiha Makoto was also directly awakened by Fugaku's movements. Anata, do you want to go out so late? She asked Fugaku softly, holding little Sasuke in her arms. I'll go to the great elder. Fugaku turned sideways and left the room without looking back. Uchiha Makoto looked at her husband's back, a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. She has always been very clear about her husband's inner ambition. But as a woman, she was unable to thwart her husband's will. We can only let it go. Not long after, Uchiha Fugaku came to another place in the clan area. This is the residence of Uchiha Kagami, the current Grand Elder of the Uchiha clan. Due to the appearance of Fusuke, Uchiha Kagami's fate has also changed dramatically. The mirror, who was supposed to die young, after being robbed of the opportunity to become a disciple of second generation by Fusuke, he survived peacefully. Now, Uchiha Kagami has taken over his father's position and become the new generation of Great Elder of the Uchiha clan. Advertisement. After entering Uchiha Kagami's residence, Fugaku discovered that Uchiha Kagami had been waiting here for a long time. Seeing the arrival of Uchiha Fugaku, Uchiha Kagami said unwillingly. HMPH. If it hadn't been for Uchiha Fusuke's sudden appearance. Buy your Mangekyo. Today is the best time for you to establish your authority within the village. Hearing this, Fugaku silently clenched his fists. Yes, Uchiha Fugaku actually started Mangekyo Sharingan a long time ago. And Uchiha Kagami seems to have learned the information early on that Konoha will be attacked and Nine-Tails will make a big fuss. Therefore, under the planning of Uchiha Kagami, prepare for Fugaku to reveal Mangekyo Sharingan at the most crucial moment. Suppress Nine-Tails and become Konoha's biggest hero, in order to gain huge reputation and prepare for the fight for Hokage. But I didn't expect it. The sudden appearance of Uchiha Fusuke completely ruined their plans. But that's okay. Your Mangekyo is not exposed, so just keep it as your trump card. At tomorrow's Jonin meeting, 4th generation will announce the news of re-electing the Hokage. Your chance has come. Uchiha will fully support you in becoming the 5th Hokage. Uchiha Kagami swept away his previous unwillingness and said to Fugaku in front of him with a somewhat excited tone. Hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku's body trembled slightly, and a trace of fire flashed in his eyes. But soon, the heat gradually faded from Fugaku's eyes. But the patriarch? He asked Uchiha Kagami slightly worriedly. But unexpectedly, after hearing the sound, Uchiha Kagami just sneered. Uchiha Ayako, that stupid woman. It's just relying on that guy Fusuke to dominate. It's nothing to worry about, Uchiha Kagami said with a trace of disdain in his eyes. It seems that she doesn't take Uchiha into consideration at all. And after hearing the name, Fusuke, Fugaku's eyes immediately flashed with worry. In an instant, the scene that seemed like a star out on the street appeared in his mind again. But what should Master Fang do? Uchiha Fugaku said quietly, with a trace of fear flashing in his eyes. As Uchiha Kagami said, the reason why he was so respectful to Ayako. It was never Ayako who was afraid, but Uchiha Fusuke behind her. Hearing Fugaku's words, Uchiha Kagami seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. Fusuke, it's Uchiha Fusuke again. A hint of coldness and jealousy flashed in Uchiha Kagami's eyes. If it weren't for him, the position of clan leader and 4th Hokage would have been mine. Uchiha Kagami said bitterly, the scene from that year reappeared in front of his eyes. More than 20 years ago. Father, I heard that the clan leader is planning to abdicate. What are the clan's considerations for the next clan leader? Uchiha Kagami, who was in his prime, asked eagerly to his old father, the previous great elder. Ahem. Mirror, Fusuke has only become a Hokage not long ago. The clan hopes that the next clan leader can repair the relationship with Fusuke after he takes office. So we unanimously plan to let Ayako serve as the clan leader. Just come and pick up my shift, Jing. The old great elder said to Uchiha Kagami meaningfully. At that time, it was Uchiha Fusuke who had just assumed the role of Hokage and was at the height of his popularity. In order to repair the relationship with Fusuke, the Uchiha family also wanted to gain Fusuke's favor. Simply push Fusuke's confidant Ayako into the position. Even though he was unwilling at all costs, Uchiha Kagami, who had insufficient strength at the time, had no choice but to compromise. Good thing. Although Uchiha Ayako became the clan leader, she had no intention of managing the clan. Therefore, the power of the Uchiha clan fell into the hands of the great elder Uchiha Kagami. Several more years passed. The Second Ninja War ended. In order to retire, Fusuke began to select and train the 4th Hokage. At this time, the expanding ambition in Uchiha Kagami's heart also began to drive him to attack the position of Hokage. Originally Uchiha Kagami had a huge advantage, but in the end. At a high-level meeting in Konoha, Uchiha Fusuke just gave him a faint look. Then he denied him with 4 understatement words. You're not qualified. And these 4 words have become a nightmare that plagues Jing's life. Until now, Kagami is already old and frail, knowing that he has no hope of becoming the Hokage in this life. He began to cultivate and support Uchiha Fugaku, trying to make Fugaku the 5th Hokage. Recalling everything in the past, Uchiha Kagami hated Fusuke even more and went crazy. Please give me flowers. HMPH. Uchiha Fusuke. He has left Konoha for more than 10 years. He is no longer the powerful 3rd Hokage he was back then. Uchiha Kagami said with a sneer. But as the saying goes, a person's name is like the shadow of a tree. Advertisement. But, he is Fusuke-sama. Under Fusuke's reputation, Uchiha Fugaku still hesitated. Fugaku's hesitation seemed to irritate Uchiha Kagami. Madness. What do you do to be a Hokage? It's strength. How do you think Uchiha Fusuke became the Hokage back then? He first cursed, and then asked Fugaku with a gloomy look. Regarding Uchiha Fusuke's accession to the 3rd Hokage, there have been divergent opinions within the village for many years. Of course Uchiha Fugaku, who was just an unknown person at that time, didn't know the inside story. So he just looked at Uchiha Kagami with a blank expression. HMPH. Uchiha Fusuke killed all his competitors. So he became the Hokage. Do you understand, idiot? Uchiha Kagami snorted coldly, and then spoke emphatically, with a trace of wolfishness flashing in his eyes. What's more, I still have a trump card in my hand. As long as I throw this card, it will be enough for Uchiha Fusuke to take care of himself. For other things, I'm afraid he will have more than enough ambition but not enough energy by then. As he spoke, Uchiha Kagami's eyes flashed with pride and pride. Seeing this situation, Uchiha Fugaku's eyes trembled slightly. Although he didn't know what this so-called trump card was. But seeing Uchiha Kagami so complacent, he knew that the other party would not take the target for granted. 0. And now, it is indeed the best time for Fugaku to get involved in the Hokage position. If he misses this opportunity, he will probably regret it for the rest of his life just like Jing. In the end, it was Fugaku's inner ambition that overcame everything else. Master Jing, I am willing to obey all your orders. As long as I can be a Hokage. Uchiha Fugaku said excitedly, and immediately said loyally to the mirror. Ha ha ha, very good. This time, as long as I can get back the Hokage position. The Konoha of the future will be Uchiha's Konoha. When the time comes, you and I will be the heroes of the tribe. Uchiha Kagami laughed and said, this enthusiasm also directly infected Uchiha Fugaku next to him. The two immediately began to plan the details of how to compete for the position of Hokage. The next day, it's still dark. Uchiha Fusuke has already woken up. At this moment, the ridiculous memories of last night filled Fang Ji's mind. Fusuke lowered his head slightly and saw Ayako's happy sleeping face with tear stains. For a moment, Fusuke's heart was filled with complexity. After all, he broke the vow he made. Suddenly, the girl's voice and smile came to Fusuke's ears again. And what she said to Fang Jie before parting. You are not allowed to fall in love with anyone else before we meet again. But until now, he still failed to abide by the agreement he made with her. Before getting together, Fusuke could still lie to himself. His feelings for Ayako are just family affection. But now, everything has happened. He couldn't continue to deceive himself any longer. Whether he admits it or not, everything last night proved to Fusuke again. That is, he really has love for Ayako in his heart. The thought of this, Uchiha Fusuke's mood suddenly became a little depressed. At this time, Ayako, whose eyes had been closed, opened them. She slightly raised a tender little hand and gently caressed Fusuke's right chest. And that's where the heart is. I know that there is someone who has lived here for a long time. She's filling this place up. But it doesn't matter, as long as there is a gap here that belongs to me, it is enough. Quote. Uchiha Ayako said softly, her voice a little muffled. Listening to Ayako's words, Okaji felt a little guilty. This trace of guilt made him feel even more depressed. Ayako, he was just about to say something. But Ayako gently raised her hand and blocked Fusuke's lips. Needless to say, the wind is not high. I'll give you time to accept this. Ayako smiled gently, and then said softly. Hearing the sound, Fusuke stopped talking. Just quietly enjoying the tenderness of this moment. At this time, there was a slight knock on the door. Afterwards, no one was seen. A female voice suddenly appeared in Fusuke's ears. Fusuke-sama, I am a member of Anbu, codename, Raccoon. I am ordering you to attend the high-level meeting of Konoha on the orders of Lord 4th Generation. This is a secret telephony ninjutsu. It is one of the compulsory ninjutsu for Anbu ninjas. Chapter 52, please invite the 3rd generation to come out and take charge of Konoha again. Please give me flowers and support. Advertisement. It is not surprising that the Anbu ninja would know the location of Uchiha Fusuke. After all, Fusuke made a lot of noise yesterday when he entered the Uchiha tribe's territory. With a little thought, you can guess where Fusuke is. Fusuke also used the sound transmission ninjutsu to reply to this Konoha Anbu. After receiving the answer, the Anbu ninja stopped continuing the mission. He should have left silently. Afterwards, Fusuke got up from the couch and started to put on his clothes. Ayako stood up obediently and followed Fusuke like a good wife and mother, serving him and dressing up. After a while, the neatly dressed Fang Jie planned to leave. Ayako, it's me. Before leaving, Fang Jie said goodbye to Ayako with a twinkling look in his eyes. Well, I'll wait for you, brother Fusuke. In response, Ayako just smiled softly, and then pecked Fusuke's lips gently. Regarding Ayako's behavior, Fusuke did not choose to stop it, but chose to accept it with a stiff face. After the touch of warm and soft lips left the corner of Fusuke's lips, he jumped away with faciation. Pooch. Seeing Fusuke's embarrassed escape, Uchiha Ayako suddenly smiled. The delicate and charming aura began to spread on her face again. Then, a trace of confusion flashed across her dangerously charming poppy-like eyes. It was as if the expression and behavior like a good wife and mother just now were all faked by her. With Fusuke's temperament, he should choose to temporarily run back to his secluded place to escape for a while. Uchiha Ayako smiled infatuatedly, with a hint of success at the corner of her mouth. Her expression was like a fox that had stolen a chicken. But that's okay. I've told you before. This time, you can't run away. Fang, Jia, brother. While murmuring softly, a charming danger flashed in her charming eyes. After leaving the clan, just as Ayako expected, on the way to the Hokage building, Uchiha thought over and over what happened yesterday. After thinking about it again and again, he still felt that he was not ready to establish an intimate relationship with Ayako. Hey, wait until the matter in Konoha is over. I'd better go back and live in seclusion. Perhaps time is the best medicine. Uchiha Fusuke thought silently in his heart. Not long after, Uchiha Fusuke has already arrived at the conference room on the top floor of the Hokage building. In the past, many important decisions of Duzi were issued here. And at this moment, the conference room was already full of people. The importance of this meeting can be seen from the participants. The average Konoha Jonin wasn't even qualified to attend. The last person at the table was elite Jonin who had been active within Konoha for many years. Fusuke-sama. With Fusuke's arrival, everyone stood up silently and saluted Fusuke. In response, Uchiha just nodded slightly, and then walked to the main seat calmly. At the front of the conference room, 2 seats are placed here. The seats are on the left and right, with the seats on the right slightly behind those on the left to show respect for the left. At this moment, 4th Hokage Namikaze Minato was standing in front of the seat on the right, waiting for Fusuke's arrival with a smile. Master Fang, you are here. Minato said to Fusuke warmly, his voice still a little tired. Fusuke glanced slightly at Minato in front of him. At this moment, Minato looked extremely haggard. Not only was his complexion sallow, his eyes were bloodshot. Moreover, the originally sunny and handsome face now had many fine wrinkles. Plus his withered white hair. At first glance, Minato at this time does not look like a young man in his 20s. Instead, he looks like an uncle in his 50s or 60s. Originally, Fusuke was Minato's grandfather in terms of seniority and age. But now that the two of them are standing together, Minato looks more like Fusuke's elder. Fusuke sighed. He knew that this was the sequelae of having a large amount of soul power and life force extracted. Have no choice. All this is Minato's own choice, and Feng Jie can't say anything else. At that moment, he was not polite and sat down directly on the main seat. He glanced thoughtfully at the main attendees. They are representative of the Senju clan, Senju Nawaki. Due to Fusuke's influence, Senju Nawaki did not die in battle. The great elder of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Kagami. The leader of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hiyashi. Konoha security chief, Uchiha Fugaku. Anbu Chong, Hataki Sakumo. Jonin squad leader, Nara Shikamaru. As well as representatives of various small and medium-sized ninja clans such as Sarutobi, Shimura, Akamaiki, Yamanaka, and several elite Jonin. Advertisement. Obviously, everything that should come and should not come has come. Fusuke's eyes flashed, and he guessed the hidden meaning behind it. He turned his head slightly and took a deep look at the haggard Minato beside him. Minato, you don't have to do this. Fusuke sighed heavily inwardly. Let's start. Then, without further delay, Fusuke, as the most noble being in Konoha, directly announced the start of the meeting. After finishing speaking, he stopped talking, just leaned back slightly and began to close his eyes to rest, as if he was asleep. At the same time, Minato answered the call and became the host of the meeting. Everyone, let me talk about the losses caused by yesterday's turmoil and how to deal with it. Minato, who looked haggard, picked up a document in front of him and began to preach with the help of Nara Shikamaru. Originally, what Minato said was extremely important. But no one present was interested in listening to what Minato said. Instead, they focused their attention on Minato's withered white hair and haggard face. It seems that the news is true. Everyone said silently in their hearts. Soon, Minato quickly finished all the contents of the document. Everyone, do you have any objections to these? Then, he glanced at everyone present. I found that everyone just didn't say a word, as if they were waiting for something. Seeing this, although Minato seemed calm on the surface, he knew it well in his heart. In fact, it is said that Minato was affected by the other life reincarnation technique, and his lifespan was greatly shortened. It should have been a top secret that no one knew except Minato and Fusuke. But this incident was leaked very strangely, causing it to spread throughout Konoha overnight. And the person who leaked it was no one else. Exactly. Namikaze Minato. Thinking of this, Minato calmly glanced at Uchiha Fusuke who seemed to be sleeping next to him. This matter must be resolved while Master Fusuke is in the village and rely on Master Fusuke's absolute prestige. Otherwise, there will definitely be chaos in the village. Minato thought silently, and suddenly felt a trace of guilt in his heart. After all, if he hadn't saved Kushina, this situation wouldn't have happened. This news about Minato's death is not long. For Konoha, it is a booby trap that will be triggered sooner or later. Once the news is revealed, a thunder explosion will occur. A slight mishandling will cause chaos within Konoha again. Instead of waiting until you can no longer hide it and then letting it explode, it is better to be the first to explode it. The reason why Minato is so eager is because he has no choice but to do so. And all of this starts with the current situation in Konoha itself. As the undisputed number one force in the ninja world, there is no doubt about the powerful nature of Konoha. Just look at paper strength. In addition to the two existing Hokages in Konoha, Konoha's White Fang, Sannin, and the heads of the Hyuga and Uchiha clans are all recognized as cage-level, strong men in the ninja world. There are also young ninjas with extraordinary talents such as Son of Senju, Shisui, and Copy Ninja Kakashi. Although the heads of the Hyuga and Uchiha clans rarely take action or even show up. But during the Second Ninja War that year, the sudden strength of the two men was enough to deserve the title of cage-level powerhouse. Therefore, there are 8 cage-level in Konoha's bright side. Cage-level, all have 8 bits. One can imagine the intertwining of large and small forces and factions within Konoha. Quite literally, Konoha's Hokage has a difficult job that cannot be compared to any cage in the other 4 major ninja villages. Because of Fusuke's appearance, Tsunade did not suffer from hemophobia, Orochimaru did not defect, and Hyuga did not commit suicide. Although for various reasons, Sannin is not inside Konoha. But when the village really needs it, Sannin will naturally not shirk it. Plus the appearance of Renua and Ayako. It can be said that Konoha's unprecedented combat power is completely opposite to that in the original work. In the original work, due to the departure of each of the Sannin in Konoha at this time, the 100 craftsmen's hundreds, we have reached an embarrassing situation where there is no work to do. At this point in time, there are only 2 talents that Konoha can use. Uchiha Shisui and Namikaze Minato died in the village's internal fighting. Wait until Nine Tails night is over. Konoha was completely prosperous and then in decline. This leads to the future when the plot officially unfolds. Konoha has reached an era of unprecedented weakness. The Hokage was actually replaced by mere Orochimaru with a pair of hands. It can be said like this. It is precisely because of the incompetence of Third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen in the original work, his connivance to Danzo, and his long-term control of power. This led to the emergence of the weakened Konoha in later generations. A strong Konoha, and a weak Konoha. The difficulty of governance is of course completely different. Facing the major ninja clans in the village and a large number of Kage level. Even though Namikaze Minato is considered top-notch at the Kage level, being a Hokage is extremely stressful. And the reason why he can successfully sit in the Hokage seat and give orders. Everything has only one reason. Uchiha Fusuke. Sannin, as Fusuke's disciple. White Fang, is advertisement. Fusuke's biggest fan. The two chiefs are Fusuke's old lovers. Who in the entire ninja village dares not to sell Uchiha Fusuke's 3-point thin noodles? With the strong support of Uchiha Fusuke, Minato was able to secure the position of the fourth Hokage. But Minato knew it. Being able to secure Hokage's position does not mean that he can handle everything in Konoha. Just like right now, once the news came out that Minato was dying. For a force as huge as Konoha. Of course, it was impossible to wait for Minato to suddenly die suddenly. Identify the next generation Hokage in advance. Ensuring a smooth transition of power is imperative. By then, on the bright side, except Minato himself and Fusuke. There are 6 people who are powerful enough to become Hokage. Behind the scenes, there are still many people vying for Hokage's position. In this situation, Minato has lost the ability to handle the situation. Nothing else. Minato alone can't control the situation at all. Therefore, the only person in Konoha who can take charge of the overall situation is Uchiha Fang. And with Fusuke's temperament, Minato was afraid that he would suddenly become silent and quietly run back to live in seclusion. It will be really troublesome then. So Minato had no choice but to take the initiative to expose the news that he was not going to die soon. In order to quickly stabilize the situation and confirm the candidate for the next generation of Hokage while Fusuke is still in Konoha. Minato retracted his thoughts. He stood up silently, looked at the high-level officials of Konoha present, and announced in a calm voice. Next, I have something to announce. That is, in yesterday's battle with Nine Tails, I suffered irreversible injuries. I'm afraid he will die soon. As soon as these words came out, the room was filled with excitement. Whether you know the news or not, everyone was involved in discussions at the same time. What? The fourth generation is dying. What should we do? Isn't the village going to be in chaos now? Why are you panicking? You didn't see that Mr. Third Generation is here. So, is the village going to elect a new Hokage? The noisy discussion instantly flooded the conference room. At the same time, everyone at the table who was interested in Hokage's position had a look of depth in their eyes. The next moment, they all focused their attention on Uchiha Fusuke, who was resting at the end of the day. The eyes of several people are different, except for a sight filled with intense hatred. A trace of fire flashed in the eyes of the other people at the same time. Obviously, they all know it. The key to deciding the next Hokage still lies with Fusuke. Seeing the noisy discussion getting more and more intense. Suddenly, Uchiha Fusuke opened his eyes suddenly, and an invisible menace suddenly burst out from his body. Quiet, accompanied by his low shout. Everyone's movements suddenly stopped, and the room instantly became silent. See, everyone calm down. Minato also continued speaking at the right time. I know that with my physical condition, I cannot continue to serve as Hokage. Carry the burden of the village. I'm sorry everyone, I failed the village's high expectations. Minato smiled bitterly and said to everyone present. But when he said the last sentence, he was facing everyone on the surface, but he was actually looking at Uchiha Fusuke. Obviously, Minato felt that the person he had let down was not the village, but Fusuke. Looking at Minato's apologetic eyes, Fusuke felt a little depressed in his heart, but it was nothing. Fourth generation. During the dinner, some ninjas who were familiar with Minato showed sad expressions after hearing this. Gather everyone together today, I just want to discuss a solution with everyone. Minato spoke again, he glanced at everyone, and finally set his sights on Hatake Tsukumo. After seeing the look in Minato's eyes, Hatake Tsukumo also stood up very simply and called Kaido. In that case, I propose. It's better for third generation Sama to come out and take charge of Konoha again. What do you think? As he said that, Hatake Tsukumo glanced at everyone at the table with a burning gaze. His words spoke to everyone's hearts. For a time, almost everyone agreed with Daozu. Yeah, it's most appropriate for third generation Sama to come out. If you are third generation Sama, I agree with both hands and feet. For a time, the crowd at the banquet was excited and everyone expressed their agreement. Chapter 53, Uchiha. Newgate. Fusuke. Old Den, please give me flowers and support. Advertisement. On the main seat, facing the excited crowd, Fusuke still just sat quietly with his eyes closed and did not react. Seeing this, Minato glanced at Hatake Tsukumo calmly, with a look of satisfaction in his eyes. Although he did not discuss it with Hatake Tsukumo beforehand. But Minato knows, as Uchiha Fusuke's most loyal fan, Hatake Tsukumo will definitely do this. This is undoubtedly what Namikaze Minato wants to see. There is no doubt that Fusuke is coming out. This is undoubtedly the best ending for Konoha. Uchiha Fusuke is the one everyone in Konoha hopes for. For a moment, everyone focused their attention on the silent Fang. At that moment, silence returned to the table, and everyone was waiting for Fusuke's answer. But in this regard, Uchiha Fusuke still just leaned on the seat quietly without any intention of speaking. Hitaki Tsukumo stood up suddenly. His actions shocked other Konoha senior officials around him. Before everyone could react, Tsukumo raised his neck and said impassionedly, "The Hitaki clan, please come out of the third generation." As his words fell, everyone at the table looked at each other. The eyes may be shocked, excited, helpless, or unhappy. But there is no way, Hitaki Tsukumo has already sang this high note. Like it or not, everyone stood up and agreed. The Senju clan, please come out of the third generation. The Hyuga clan, please come out of the third generation. The Nara clan, please request Lord Third Generation to come out. Quote. After everyone expressed their opinions. As the representative of the Uchiha clan, the great elder Uchiha Kagami could only stand up reluctantly. The Uchiha clan requests Third Generation Lord to come out. Even though Jing's heart was already filled with hatred and gnashing of teeth. But under the general trend, he can only be coerced by the general trend. Uchiha Kagami tried to look as calm as possible, but the meaning of his actions was still exposed to everyone. As the head family of Third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke, the Uchiha clan actually expressed their support for Fusuke at the end. It is self-evident what kind of information this contains. On the other hand, there is the Senju clan on one side. When facing Uchiha Fusuke, who is supposed to be the archenemy, Senju's attitude is so clear. Senju Nawaki, the representative of Senju of the forest. The excitement and fanaticism on his face at this moment is beyond words. He is second only to Hitaki Tsukumo. This world has really changed. 843. When they thought of this, everyone at the table showed a hint of complexity in their eyes. At last, as a final appearance, Namikaze Minato, who planned this forced palace, turned slightly sideways and looked at Fusuke beside him. The Namikaze clan, please request Third Generation Lord to come out. Then, Minato spoke with a firm voice. Obviously. This, one call and 100 responses, seen as inseparable from Fusuke's huge reputation in Konoha. But Namikaze Minato's contribution to the cause is inevitable behind the scenes. Hitaki Tsukumo is just a pioneer among them. Finally, Fusuke, who had been silent for a long time, let out a sigh. At this time, silence returned to the conference room again. He thought he could escape by playing dead. But I didn't expect that I still couldn't escape Hitaki Tsukumo and Namikaze Minato's deadly serial calls, in the end. Fusuke glanced helplessly at Hitaki Tsukumo, who was full of excitement, and Namikaze Minato, who was smiling and silent beside him. For a moment, I didn't know whether to be moved or blamed. Fusuke seems to know the helplessness of Tezu of the Song dynasty, who was wearing a yellow robe at that time. Then, he stood up slowly, glanced at everyone, and took in the expressions of all the living beings at the table. Excitement, joy, expectation, resentment, dissatisfaction. Looking at these different eyes. In the end Fusuke just said calmly. I'm old and just a bad old man. Remnants of the old days like me. Where is my place on the ship to the new world? Hearing this, everyone's expressions at the table were filled with complexity. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into Uchiha. Newgate. Fusuke. Old Den. The disappointment in Hitaki Tsukumo's eyes could no longer be concealed. There are even some people with twitching eyes and weird expressions. Who can become an elite jonin or a representative of the ninja clan who is not middle-aged? In this conference room, Uchiha Fusuke is almost the youngest one in appearance. Invisible pretense is the most deadly. Looking at Fusuke's handsome young face, everyone didn't know what to say. Even though everyone knows that the so-called bad old man is just Fusuke's excuse. But it is still irrefutable. And what he said was indeed the truth. Advertisement. Because of age and seniority. Just because Fusuke looks physically young and is actually physically young doesn't mean he should be considered a young man. If Fusuke wanted to cling to power, he would not have passed the throne to Namikaze Minato 10 years ago BCFH. Everyone looked at the two Hokages on the main seat with complicated expressions. One is the young and strong, who is in his youth, has a withered face in his 20s and is not going to die soon. The other is an old, bad old man, who has a history similar to that of Konoha, but is still handsome and has red lips and white teeth. The gap between people is so big. Everyone sighed silently in their hearts. Minato looked at Fusuke's handsome face beside him, with a hint of bitterness on his face. Although he already knew it, Fusuke has no idea of getting involved in power. But what Minato didn't expect was that Fusuke had no intention of changing his attitude even when faced with the forcing of the entire village. But no matter what, Uchiha Fusuke's words were tantamount to a polite refusal to take power again. This disappointed most of the people at the table, but also made a small number of people who coveted the position of Hokage suddenly feel ecstatic. Especially Uchiha Kagami and Uchiha Fugaku. After hearing Fusuke's words, the two people's eyes flashed with visible excitement. Minato smiled bitterly to himself. I can only comfort myself silently in my heart. At least Fusuke-sama is willing to attend the meeting. It can be said that the situation in the village has been stabilized. Although I expected Fusuke might refuse. But when this scene really happened, he still felt a little disappointed in his heart. No matter how disappointed Minato felt, the decision to decide on the next generation of Hokage still needs to continue. And once this motion is initiated, it is destined that Konoha will not be peaceful in the future. In that case, next, let's start nominating Hokage servants according to the rules of the village. Minato forced him to calm down and said in a solemn tone. According to the beginning of Konoha's establishment, the rules set by first Hokage Senju Hashirama, whenever the position of Hokage in the village changes. Hokage, Konoha's top leaders, Chief Anbu, Jonin squad leader, Hokage advisor, and the three major ninja clans of Senju, Hyuga, and Uchiha can nominate candidates for Hokage. As long as the nominee is recognized by more than 30% of Konoha's elite, you can officially obtain the status of Hokage candidate. In the Hokage candidate, as long as someone is recognized by the previous Hokage, they can officially take over the position of Hokage. Both Fusuke and Minato were selected through this process. It is worth mentioning that, when competing for Third Hokage, except Uchiha Fusuke, all other Hokage candidates, and even the second Hokage himself, died in the battle. As a result, Uchiha Fusuke became the only choice for the current Hokage, with Minato officially announcing the start of the Hokage alternate nominations. Seeing that the done deal is completely over, Third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke confirmed that he has no intention of continuing to take charge of Konoha. A heated discussion broke out again during the dinner. Is there really going to be a Hokage alternate nomination? Who do you think is suitable? Who else could it be? Of course it would be Shuamao Tianren. Fart, I think Master Jiraiya is clearly the most suitable. Master Shikado is not bad either. After all, the most important thing for a leader is his mind. Compared to the heated discussion at the table, the few people who really have the right to make nominations have never said a word. Obviously, they had already made a reservation in their minds before coming. After giving the table some time for discussion, as the current nominal and de facto person in power in Konoha, Minato took the initiative to speak. As the fourth Hokage, I nominate Lord Jiraiya from Sannin. As the next Hokage candidate, Minato was the first to speak. Nominated as Hokage, no one was surprised that Minato would nominate Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sama, I think it will work. I think so. Jiraiya-sama is the teacher of the fourth generation and the disciple of the third generation. Identity and strength, no matter how you look at it, being a Hokage is enough. At the moment, the discussion about Minato's nomination started at the table. Not long after, voting begins under the chairmanship of Minato. Nearly half of Konoha's elite and high-level officials approved of Minato's nomination. Therefore Jiraiya officially became the first, fifth Hokage candidate. Immediately afterwards, classes Senju, Hyuga, Anbu, and Jonin all submitted nominations. Their respective nominations are Senju Tsunade, Hyuga Hiyashi, Hitaki Sakumo and Nara Shikamaiki. 4 people also passed the nomination vote separately. Finally, because the position of Hokage advisor in Konoha is now vacant, so only the third Hokage Fusuke and the Uchiha clan were not nominated. And everyone tacitly ignored the mirror that represented Uchiha. The reason is also very simple. It is true that the Uchiha clan has the right to nominate Hokage. This is due to the first Hokage Senju Hashirama's visit to that time. Uchiha Chief, Madara's promise. But it's embarrassing. Advertisement. Since the first generation period to the present day, including Uchiha Madara himself, over the years, the Uchiha clan has nominated ninjas, let alone competing for the Hokage. He never even made it past the voting stage and was not even qualified to be a candidate. There are many reasons for this, it is difficult to list them all. The only exception is Uchiha Fusuke. The reason is also very simple. Because it was not the Uchiha clan who nominated Fusuke at that time, but a Jonin squad leader who couldn't bear to have his talents buried. Therefore, Uchiha Kagami will be ignored until now. Naturally, Uchiha Kagami is well aware of everyone's contempt. He just sneered and didn't rush to speak. Everyone once again focused their attention on Uchiha Fusuke, waiting for the birth of the last Hokage candidate. This isn't just the last one. Also, most likely to get one. But unexpectedly, Fusuke just spoke slowly. I abstain from voting. As soon as this statement came out, everyone felt a little disappointed. But it also gave birth to a hint of contradictory hope again. The reason for such a very contradictory mood is actually not difficult to understand. Disappointed, because Fusuke's support will most likely directly determine the next Hokage candidate. Hope is because Fang Jie chose to abstain from voting, preserving a chance for the Hokage candidate they hoped to see. See Fusuke abstain. Disappointment flashed again in Minato's eyes. Fusuke's support is undoubtedly extremely powerful for the upcoming 5th Hokage. In fact, for Minato, it doesn't matter who takes over Hokage, what matters is whether Konoha can be stable in the future. Whoever Fusuke supports will gain a great say in Konoha. This is the necessary foundation for becoming a Hokage. It seems that Master Fusuke really doesn't want to interfere too much in the village's affairs. Minato said with disappointment in his heart. As everyone knows, Minato really misunderstood Uchiha Fusuke this time. It is true that Fusuke has no intention of getting involved in power. But this does not mean that he wants to see chaos in Konoha. In Fusuke's mind, Tsunade is naturally the most suitable candidate for 5th Hokage. Except for Tsunade after all, The remaining few people are not particularly suitable. Although Narashikami is smart, he is not strong enough to convince the public. Hitaki Tsukumo is strong enough, but too loyal and has a poor outlook on the overall situation. As for Jiraiya, he is used to being a Hokage, so he is not the material to be a Hokage. Hyuga Hiyashi, not to mention, is just here to run with him. So, since the Senju clan has already nominated Tsunade, the four of them will naturally not add any unnecessary extravagance. Repeated nominations will have no effect. Fusuke also believes in Tsunade's ability. As long as you want to be a Hokage, you can easily win the competition. Not only that, at that time, Fusuke can also secretly help Tsunade. It seems that the Hokage will only be born among these 5 people. This is probably the lowest number of nominations in the past few years. Seeing that Fusuke abstained from voting, the discussion broke out again. At this moment, Uchiha Kagami suddenly spoke loudly. Wait, the Uchiha clan, nominate Uchiha Fugaku, the Minister of Security. At that moment, the room became quiet again. After all, a bad relationship is a bad relationship. Because of Uchiha's prestigious reputation, he is unwilling to give any more face that should be given to him. With Uchiha Kagami's words, the voting began again in tacit agreement. Agree. Be opposed to. Be opposed to. I object to. At the moment, as expected. Except for a few elite jonin from the Uchiha clan and a few leaders of the small ninja clan who relied on the security department for their meals, there were only a few at the table. Most Konoha shinobi fans chose to oppose it. We are seeing this trend develop. Uchiha's Hokage dream will be embarrassingly shattered once again. But for that, Uchiha Kagami, however, still looked at ease and didn't care at all. Everyone just thought that Uchiha Kagami had become accustomed to it over the years and gave up hope. But what I didn't expect was, at this moment, amidst the wave of opposition, several particularly harsh voices suddenly appeared. Agree, I agree. Only 7 or 8 elite jonin actually agreed to the Uchiha clan's nomination at the last moment. Seeing this, everyone's eyes flashed with a look of surprise. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Kagami smiled coldly, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. Beside him, Uchiha Fugaku, who was originally worried, was immediately overjoyed. Because of these last-minute votes of approval, it happened that Uchiha Fugaku stepped into the ranks of candidates by stepping on the 30% threshold. Chapter 54, finished. I was picked up and brought home by a beautiful girl. Advertisement. In the main seat, Uchiha Fusuke suddenly opened his eyes and looked. In an instant, he caught the sight of those ninjas who voted, yes. I saw that those few people were exactly the same. Sarutobi, Shimura, Mito, and several other elites of the ninja clan. A strange color flashed in Uchiha Fusuke's eyes. Then, he closed his eyes slightly again. Just when his eyes were slightly closed, a cold light suddenly flashed from Fusuke's eyes. Although the Uchiha family has made an unprecedented breakthrough from 0 to 1, this shocked everyone. But the matter has come to this, and everyone can only accept the result. With the closing of nominations, the village began to send Anbu ninjas to contact Tsunade and Jiraiya who had been traveling abroad. In fact, since Uchiha Fusuke's retirement, the combination, Sannin, can be regarded as existing in name only. The 3 of them also stayed outside the village most of the time for their own reasons. Before Tsunade and Jiraiya return to the village, the competition for 5th Hokage will not officially begin. After the meeting regarding the nomination of Hokage alternate, at Minato's request, Fusuke promised not to go back to seclusion for the time being. Knowing that Fusuke wouldn't suddenly run away, Minato showed a relieved expression. Afterwards, the exhausted Minato said goodbye to Fusuke and started to go home. Minato wants to use his limited life to spend more time with his family, which is of course human nature. Fusuke looked at Minato's leaving figure. He opened his mouth to say something, but in the end he chose to swallow it back. The reason is also very simple. Because at this moment Fusuke suddenly discovered something very embarrassing. Because of what happened last night, Fusuke could not face Ayako calmly. This has resulted in the majestic Konoha Third Hokage becoming homeless at this moment. Fang, 590, Suke originally wanted to call Minato, and planned to stay at Minato's house for a few days. But when I thought about Minato's current situation, I decided not to cause trouble to Minato. Forget it, Konoha is so big. You will always meet someone who is destined for you. Thinking of this, Fusuke smiled and left the Hokage building. Wandering on the streets of Konoha, looking at everything familiar and yet unfamiliar around me. Fusuke's heart gradually calmed down. At the meeting just now, anyone with eyesight can see it. The ambitions of Uchiha Kagami and Uchiha Fugaku are already evident. This time is different. Uchiha's strength is already strong, plus several ninjas who are suddenly connected with Uchiha at this moment. This makes it possible for the Uchiha clan to aspire to the position of Hokage. Fusuke is usually lazy, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. Recalling everything that just happened, Fusuke's eyes flashed with a strange color. Why, Uchiha, don't do anything stupid. Tobirama's past instructions, the intricate forces within the village, and the ambitions of the Uchiha clan. Everything flashed through his heart and finally turned into a leisurely sigh. Be it Uchiha Fugaku or Uchiha Kagami. After all, he is not Hokage material. Today is different from the past. The miracle that Feng Jie achieved in becoming Hokage cannot be replicated. Unless Fusuke is willing to stay in the village at all times to protect Uchiha. Otherwise, even if Fugaku has enough talent, there was no way other forces within Konoha could just sit back and watch him become the Hokage. And with Fusuke's relationship with the Uchiha family having been close to each other for many years, he certainly would not do this for Uchiha. In addition, if Fusuke is really willing to stay in the village, there is no need to choose fifth Hokage. So for the sake of stability, he is not optimistic about Uchiha Fugaku becoming Hokage. Uchiha's inflated ambition. It also reminded Uchiha Fusuke of an incident that would not and should not happen. That is, the night of genocide. I hope Uchiha Fugaku can retreat. Thinking of this, Fusuke's eyes flashed with depth. Unknowingly, it was already late at night. After walking for a long time, Fusuke couldn't help but feel a little hungry. At this moment, an izakaya appeared in front of Fusuke. Without much hesitation, he planned to go in and have a full meal first. In an izakaya, because it was late at night, there were not many customers inside. A tall and slender beautiful girl with bright red eyes, not Uchiha, was sitting in front of the counter, taking a drink from the wine glass in front of her. Well, what a shame. After drinking, a trace of embarrassment flashed across the girl's angry face, and her watery eyes were full of frustration and shyness. Thinking of the embarrassing things that happened last night, a trace of red cloud flashed across Yuhi Hong's pretty face again. I actually tried to strike up a conversation with third generation Sama. Advertisement. Woo, it's dead. Thinking of her depressed mood again, the girl Yuhi Hong suddenly picked up the wine glass again and drank it all in one gulp. Even with her good drinking capacity, she could not help but feel dizzy at this moment. But, third generation Sama is really handsome. I really want to see him again. Yuhi Hong lay on the table and murmured, her eyes blurred and her expression began to become a little extravagant. At this moment, her mind was filled with the handsome scene of Uchiha Fusuke suddenly appearing and knocking down 9 tails with one blow. Just when Hong was immersed in his thoughts, suddenly, a gentle and elegant voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Oh, is the third Hokage really that handsome? Hearing the sound, Shirai Hong's expression froze. Then she immediately stood up, shouted loudly and turned her head to look in the direction of the sound. Of course, he's very handsome. But just in the middle of speaking, Yuhi Hong's expression froze on the spot. All she saw was the handsome face that he had longed for, appearing in front of her at some point. Yuhi Hong's stiff expression only lasted for a moment. The next second, her expression returned to composure again, and she murmured stupidly as if to comfort herself. No, I must be drunk and hallucinating. Third generation Sama has so many things to do, why are you here? Hong rubbed her little face while deceiving herself with a silly smile. Seeing this, Uchiha Fusuke's eyes flashed with a smile. Yuhi read Chunin. It is a village rule that you should say hello to Hokage when you see him. Fusuke said with a hint of teasing flashed in his eyes. This look seemed like he saw some interesting little animal on the street and planned to play a trick on it. Hear the sound. Yuhi Hong's movements of rubbing her face suddenly froze. The hazy drunkenness also quickly fades from the brain. The next second, Yuhi Hong's big, bright eyes began to lose focus. Then, steam seemed to come out of the girl's head, and her cheeks turned red like big apples in autumn. Woo! Along with a mournful scream that echoed through the sky, Yuhi Hong felt that the sky was dark and the earth was dark before her. 10 minutes later, Yuhi Hong, who had regained some sense, locked her neck, lowered her head and whispered in an inaudible voice. See me Marseille, third generation lord. Looking at the cute behavior of the girl Yuhi Kurenai. Uchiha Fusuke's playfulness has increased. Your father should be Jonin. If I remember correctly, the Yuhi family has always been an ninjutsu family famous for its illusions. You can't even tell the difference between illusion and reality. Uchiha Fusuke continued to smile at the red tone. Fusuke's words caused Yuhi Hong's already lowered head to be completely buried in her chest. Oh dollar. In response to Fusuke's teasing, the girl could only protest in a low voice with an inaudible whimper. Seeing that if the teasing continues, Kurenai Yuhi will transform into the steam princess. Fusuke also stopped at the right time, smiled, stopped talking, and started eating to fill his stomach. For a moment, the atmosphere between the two became somewhat silent. There was no movement on Fusuke's side for a long time. Yuhi Hong, who was filled with shame and anger, turned her head carefully and took a peek to the side. Seeing that Fusuke didn't leave, Hong felt ashamed, angry and secretly happy. The contradictory and complex psychology of a girl makes Yuhi Hong full of tangles in her heart. She prepared to speak several times, but in the end she swallowed the words back due to shyness. After a long time, Fusuke has packed a meal and is ready to say goodbye to Hong and leave. But as soon as he wiped his pocket, his expression suddenly froze. As the saying goes, people make mistakes and horses make mistakes. Since he has lived in seclusion for many years, Fusuke has long forgotten that he still needs to use the currency bank to make transactions reliably when going out. Now something embarrassing happened. After finishing the meal, Uchiha Fusuke realized that he didn't bring any money. What to do? A hint of embarrassment appeared on Fusuke's face. Certainly, with the existence of Flying Thunder God, it is certainly not a problem for Fusuke to leave. But if this happens, tomorrow the whole of Konoha will probably know about Third Hokage eating the king's meal and running away. Not to mention the shame, Tobirama would be so angry that he would jump out of the coffin. Lousy's Flying Thunder God, you just use it to eat the overlord meal. When he thought of this, Uchiha's eyes flashed with helplessness. As the saying goes, a penny can stump a Hokage Han. That's all, we can only return to our clan first. At this time, Ayako is probably still waiting for me. After much deliberation, Fusuke had no choice but to prepare to return to the Uchiha tribe and get some money from Ayako to pay the bill. Uchiha Fusuke was helpless in his heart. When thinking of Ayako, Fusuke's heart was complicated and softened. Perhaps even Uchiha could not have imagined that Fusuke might go home late at night because of this ridiculous day. Advertisement. Just when he was about to use Flying Thunder God to go home and withdraw money. Suddenly, Yuhi Hong, who had been silent for a long time, finally made some move. In the original work, among all the female characters who appear, Yuhi Hong is undoubtedly the one with the most good wife temperament. As a typical woman with the character of a good wife and mother, being considerate is naturally a characteristic of Yuhi Hong's character. The attribute of being considerate has naturally existed since she was a girl. Although she remained silent, but the girl had actually been watching Uchiha Fusuke silently. After thinking for a moment, Yuhi Kurenai judged the reason for Fusuke's embarrassment from his actions. 3. Lord Third Generation. I haven't thanked you for saving my life last time. So I want to treat you to dinner. Yuhi Hong suddenly raised her head, suppressing the shyness in her heart and stammered to Fusuke beside her. Hearing the sound, Fusuke's movements suddenly stopped. He turned his eyes and looked at the shy girl Yuhi Hong next to him. After hesitating for a moment, he finally nodded in agreement. With Fusuke's insight, he could tell at a glance that Yuhi Kurenai was taking the initiative to rescue him. Compared to going back and facing Ayako, Fusuke is more willing to accept Kurenai's help. What a considerate and good girl. Fusuke thought secretly, and also had a good impression of Yuhi Hong in his heart. Then, Yuhi Hong picked up the wine glass in front of her that had very little left in it, raised her head and drank it all in one gulp. Gouda. Avoiding waste is of course the virtue of a good wife, that is engraved in the bones of young girls. Then she paid the bill happily with a flushed face. The wine has passed 3 rounds, and the food has passed the 5 flavors. The two walked out of the store one after the other. Throughout the whole process, the two of them had no unnecessary communication. Third Generation Sama. I'm going home first. It wasn't until she arrived at the door of the izakaya that Yuhi Hong opened her mouth to Fang with a shy face. Goodbye. Facing the girl's farewell, Fusuke just smiled and nodded in response. Then, Yuhi Hong turned around and left with some reluctance, until she gradually walked away. Uchiha Fusuke was still standing at the door of the izakaya, thinking about how he would spend tonight. At this time, Shihi Hong on the side suddenly gritted her teeth, turned around suddenly with a flushed face, and trotted back to Feng Jie. Third Generation Sama. I want to invite you to my house. Yuhi Kurenai ignored her eyes and face that were about to become at, and spoke loudly to Fusuke. Obviously, the girl had already noticed it. Fusuke's dilemma is not only that he has no money to eat, but also has nowhere to stay. It's just that due to shyness, Yuhi Hong is simply embarrassed to continue to express her kindness to Fusuke. Besides, it's late at night. If a single girl invites a man to go home for the night, it will inevitably lead to misunderstandings. After struggling in her heart for a long time, Yuri Hong's inner kindness still overcame her shyness. The girl who couldn't bear to see Uchiha Fusuke, sleeping on the street, finally sent an invitation to Fusuke. Looking at Yuhi Kurenai who has reached the limit of shyness, Fusuke felt a warm feeling in his heart. Present. In addition to being cute and understanding, Yuhi Kurenai's label in Fusuke's heart is also kind-hearted. After hesitating for a moment, Fusuke still did not let the girl's courage to show kindness fail. Okay. Fusuke nodded in agreement, seeing that Fusuke really agreed. The steam on Yuhi Hong's head intensified again. Then, with a red face, the girl stiffly took a certain Uchiha old man home. At the same time, somewhere in the ninja world, a middle-aged ninja with a hedgehog-white hair wearing a forehead protector with the word, oil, on his head, just lying down near a mist-shrouded hot spring, he stared at the inside of the hot spring with an extremely lewd expression. Yes, this is good. Well, that's not bad. While smiling obscenely, he also took out a notebook and kept writing in it. Bang! Suddenly, a burst of smoke appeared out of thin air around Jiraiya. Then, an ugly toad with a colorful body and upright legs suddenly appeared out of thin air beside the white-haired man. This is none other than a toad summoning beast from Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya-sama, Konoha has sent the news to Mount Myoboku, asking us to contact you. The toad liaison officer who used reverse summoning to show up on his own initiative obviously hadn't figured out the situation yet, so he spoke loudly. Oops. Seeing this, Jiraiya suddenly felt bad. The commotion here also caused a harsh explosion to erupt from the spring. Chapter 55, Anecdotes about Drunken Beautiful Girl in Uchiha Loudon. Advertisement. There are gangsters. At that moment, tubs, bath towels, brushes and other items began to be thrown out in the direction of Jiraiya. Not caring about anything else, Jiraiya could only pick up the toad liaison officer and run away. Jiraiya just left. Mengen, who was 1.9 meters tall and weighed 200 kilograms, rushed out with a look on his face. Looking at the empty crime scene, the fierce woman could only curse angrily. Here, after Jiraiya escapes. He frowned, his face full of regret and nostalgia. Then, he turned his head and said unhappily to the Toad Liaison Officer. Why did you come out so suddenly without notifying me? Faced with Jiraiya's complaints, the Toad Liaison Officer also looked helpless. It was an emergency, and he rushed over as soon as he got the news. Who knew that Jiraiya would peek at girls taking a shower at this time? I'm sorry, Jiraiya. Please tell Mount Myoboku in advance next time you peek at a girl taking a shower. I promise I won't interrupt. The Toad Liaison Officer replied in a nonchalant manner. This also made Jiraiya suddenly speechless. The Toad Liaison Officer thrust a scroll into Jiraiya's hands, then took the initiative to cancel summoning and return to Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya was not upset when he saw that he had hit a soft nail. He just opened the scroll silently and read the contents inside. Soon, Jiraiya had a clear view of the contents of the scroll, and there was a hint of complexity in his eyes. The contents of the scroll come from Minato's own handwriting. It informed Jiraiya of the situation in the village and that he had been listed as a Hokage candidate. With Jiraiya's temperament, he naturally has no interest in becoming a Hokage. He was more concerned about other things. Has the teacher also returned to the village? In this case, she will come back too. Jiraiya's eyes flashed and he thought secretly in his heart. Kurenai Yuhi is already a fully independent Chunin. Therefore, she separated from her parents long ago and chose to live alone. Not long after, Kurenai took Uchiha Fusuke back home. Although living alone, but the attentive girl had already anticipated the problem of staying overnight after a friend came to visit. So she chose a 2-bedroom apartment as her residence. What I didn't expect was that the first person to stay in this cozy little house was Uchiha. Mr. Third Generation. This is the bedroom, this is the bathroom. The girl blushed and introduced her nest in a somewhat reserved manner. Call me Grandpa Fusuke. If you really mind, just call Fang. Sensing the girl's restraint, Fusuke smiled slightly. In Neon culture, calling each other by name is something only people who are close to each other can do. Fusuke said this, which was equivalent to recognizing the girl in front of him. Facing this lovely girl in her prime of bloom, a trace of gentleness flashed in his eyes. After hearing Fusuke's words, a trace of embarrassment flashed in Yuhi Hong's eyes. She recalled her rash conversation with Fusuke before. Obviously, the two names, Grandpa Fusuke, and Fusuke, cannot be called. A very strange one. The other one is too close. After thinking again and again, the girl still said softly and delicately. Yes, Master Fang. Shy girls are afraid to go see Fusuke. Then, she pretended to be sleepy and spoke to the wind again. I'm drunk, I feel dizzy. Well, I'm going to rest first. Good night, Fusuke-sama. After saying that, Yuhi Hong fled back to her bedroom like a frightened little deer. Snapped. Looking at Hong's closed door, Fusuke smiled and shook his head. Of course, he has no unnecessary thoughts about a cute girl of this age who can be his granddaughter. Afterwards, Fusuke went to the bathroom and planned to wash up a little. But who would have expected? As soon as I entered this small bathroom, Fusuke saw the suspicious black cloth hanging on the clothes drying rack. This girl has an unexpectedly bold style. Looking at the lace black cloth that was no bigger than a palm, a strange look flashed in Fusuke's eyes. In a bedroom full of girly style. At this moment, Yuhi Hong was already lying on the bed, wrapping her into a silkworm chrysalis. Yuhi Hong put the quilt over her head and kept thinking wildly in her heart. What to do, if Fusuke-sama suddenly comes in at night? Then I am. What if I agree? Then Fusuke-sama will think that I am very casual. Advertisement. The girl covered Xiaolu's pounding heart, and a series of stories continued to appear in her mind. It wasn't until a long time later that wine and exhaustion gradually overwhelmed Shiri Hong. The girl who wrapped herself into a silkworm chrysalis also breathed evenly. Master Feng. Don't. There. Be. Along with the girl's shy babble, she gradually fell into a deep sleep. It's still this night. Some are happy and some are sad. Uchiha Fugaku was lying on the bed, tossing and turning, feeling a little restless. Until dawn, he did not feel the slightest sleepiness. Finally, at dawn, a subtle and secret voice reached Fugaku's ears. At that moment, he suddenly stood up from the bed. He ignored his sleeping wife beside him. He resolutely dressed and left the bedroom. After a while, Uchiha Fugaku appears again at Uchiha Kagami's mansion. As soon as he arrived, he found that besides Uchiha Kagami, there was also a young man with delicate red phoenix eyes in the house. Fugaku is no stranger to this boy. This person is the grandson of the great elder Uchiha Kagami. Uchiha Shisui, who became known as Shunshin Shisui, at a young age. Shisui is about the same age as Kakashi. He looks only 12 or 13 years old. But his level of genius is definitely better than Kakashi. Fugaku. Everything is going smooth. Next, just follow the plan. The Hokage position is ours. Uchiha Kagami said proudly, with a bit of arrogance in his eyes. It seems that becoming Hokage is already a certainty for Fugaku. Thanks to the great elder for his brilliant plan. Uchiha Fugaku's eyes also flashed with excitement, and he praised the mirror with gratitude. Only one side, Uchiha Shisui, remained silent, with a hint of worry deep in his eyes. Great elder, what should we do next? Excited, Fugaku asked Uchiha Kagami about his next plan. Of all the candidates, I understand Jiraiya's character fairly well, but he will not be a Hokage. So your real competition is only 4 people. The arrogance in Uchiha Kageme's eyes did not diminish, and he still just analyzed it quietly. Of the remaining ones, Nara Shikado poses the least threat. So I will arrange for someone to do it tonight. Get rid of Nara Shikamaru directly. As he spoke, Uchiha Kageme's eyes flashed with a sinister look. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Shisui's body trembled suddenly, and a look of disbelief flashed in his eyes. On the other hand, because Uchiha Kagami had vaccinated him in advance. So Fugaku's plan for mirror madness is not too surprising. As for Hyuga, Fugaku, go ahead, Uchiha Kagami ordered Fugaku coldly, with a trace of disdain in his eyes. Hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku looked a little uncertain. What should I do? Directly assassinate Hyuga Hiyashi. Then, he tentatively asked Uchiha Kagami. Humph, stupid. Hyuga is just a low-level character. But the woman from the Hyuga family is difficult to deal with. Don't worry, I have a better way. As he spoke, Uchiha Kagami's eyes flashed with pride. He leaned close to Uchiha Fugaku's ear and whispered something. As the two of them whispered, Uchiha Fugaku's eyes suddenly flashed with excitement. Okay, the Great Elder really has a clever plan. He applauded repeatedly and seemed to agree with Jing's method. There are 2 people left at the end. That girl from Senju won't be able to come back anytime soon. I will confirm this again. As for Hitaki Tsukumo and 4th generation. As he spoke, Uchiha Kagami turned his attention to his grandson. Shisui, show that to Fugaku. As he spoke, Uchiha Kagami's expression became more and more arrogant, and his eyes were full of pride. Hearing the sound, a trace of struggle flashed in Uchiha Shisui's eyes, but in the end he obeyed Mirror's order. Whoa! In an instant, the 3 scarlet magatama in Shisui's eyes began to rotate and fuse rapidly. Until it finally turned into a brand new square windmill. This is indeed a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. Seeing this, Uchiha Fugaku's eyes flashed with horror. He never expected that Uchiha Shisui, who was only a teenager, would already activate Mangekyo Sharingan. This talent almost makes Fugaku feel a little jealous. Hitaki Tsukumo and the 4th generation. Leave it to Shisui's ability to do it. Uchiha Kagami said with great confidence, it seems that the famous Golden Flash and Konoha's White Fang. Advertisement. In front of Shisui, he is like a lamb to be slaughtered. Uchiha Fugaku doesn't know what Shisui's Mangekyo ability is though. But seeing Uchiha Kagami so confident, he believed that Kagami had enough control in his heart. Fugaku, after you become a member of 5th generation. Leave it to Shisui to do the 6th Hokage. As for the 7th generation. I heard that your eldest son has a good talent, so I'll leave it to your eldest son. In this way, Konoha will be my, Uchiha's, world from now on. Uchiha Kagami said with feverish eyes, already fantasizing about turning Konoha into Uchiha's bag. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Fugaku looked at Uchiha Kagami in shock. His eyes were full of shock. He never expected that Uchiha Kagami had even started a great cause plan that would make contributions to the present and benefit the future. Yes, I will definitely go to pieces for the Great Elder. Fugaku immediately responded to the mirror with the same enthusiasm. Ha ha ha, okay. Uchiha Kagami laughed and responded with a huge expression on his face. But what neither of them noticed was, Uchiha Shisui, who was next to the 2 of them at the moment, had pain and struggle in his eyes. After a while, Uchiha Kagami walked out of the house and walked towards the deepest part of the clan. And in a family with ancient heritage like the Uchiha clan, there is a strong idea of honor and inferiority everywhere. Therefore, the more noble the status in the family, the deeper the place where they live is. Therefore, the clan leader often lives in the deepest part of the clan territory. This is not only to maintain the quietest and most elegant environment for the patriarch, but also to demonstrate the authoritative status of the patriarch. As Jing walked toward the deepest part of the clan, a secret hatred flashed through his heart. Uchiha Ayako, this BCH. As soon as my plan succeeds. The patriarch is mine, and so are you. Uchiha Kagami thought with greed in her heart, and then walked into the patriarch's residence. And at this time, Uchiha Aoi is sitting in the middle of the courtyard, her charming eyes full of soft colors at the moment. She threaded the needle and thread with gentle movements, and her jade-like delicate hands were sewing carefully. Far away, looking at Ayako's stunning appearance and this beautiful scene of natural harmony. A trace of greedy possessiveness flashed in Uchiha Kagami's eyes. Lord Patriarch, why is it so rare to find embroidery fun today? Uchiha Kagami suppressed the desire and greed in his heart and pretended to be calm. Ayako just glanced at the visiting Uchiha Kagami, then returned her gaze and said calmly. It's the Great Elder. Fusuke is back, I want to make him some clothes myself. Mentioning Uchiha Fusuke, a hint of tenderness flashed in Ayako's charming eyes. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Kagami's body trembled suddenly, and a trace of terrifying distortion and jealousy flashed in his eyes. Tell me, why did the Great Elder come here specially? She didn't seem to notice Uchiha Kagami's gaffe at all, and just asked lightly without raising her head. That's right, the village is running for Hokage. The person the clan supports this time is Fugaku. Uchiha Kagami suppressed the jealousy in her heart and spoke in a calm tone as much as possible. Hear the words. Regarding Uchiha Kagami's, kill first and tell later, and play later, Ayako was not angry at all. Her expression was still as calm as water, and she was just quietly concentrating on the half-sewn clothes in her hands. It seemed that what Jing was talking about was not as important as the embroidery in her hands. Just leave these matters to the great elder to decide. Ayako still just said calmly, her tone calm and indifferent. As for Ayako's indifference, Uchiha Kagami has long been accustomed to it. Of course, he did not come here specifically to report to Uchiha Ayako, but for another matter. And one more thing. This time, among Fugaku's competitors is Senju's woman. I would like to ask the clan leader whether she will be able to come back in the short term. Uchiha Kagami asked, with a hint of depth in her eyes. She wants to return to Konoha, and it will take a week at the earliest. Ayako replied without raising her head. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Kagami felt calm. If so, then I won't bother the clan leader. After saying that, Uchiha Kagami glanced at Uchiha Ayako greedily, then turned and left directly. Uchiha Ayako still didn't respond at all. She doesn't seem to care whether Uchiha Kagami goes or stays. What Uchiha Kagami didn't see was, in the eyes of Ayako, who lowered her head and focused on embroidery, a heart-shaped triangular windmill was rotating slightly. Finally, wait until Ayako finished pricking the last stitch of the clothes in her hands. She stood up slowly and raised the clothes in her hands with a satisfied look and scanned them carefully. Fusuke brother, this is my gift to you. Then, Ayako suddenly smiled and said. In her charming eyes, the scarlet heart-shaped windmill exudes the charming charm of a poppy flower. Chapter 56. Two girls meet, Tsunade's announcement of finding her husband. Advertisement. In the ninja world, in an unknown town. A blonde beauty with a proud figure and a noble and elegant temperament was holding a huge pictorial and wandering around the streets of the town to post it. To the men in this remote town, it's natural to be shocked when you meet a beauty of this level. Soon, a long tail appeared behind the woman. For these guys, evil intentions may not be a thing. But it's also good to look at beautiful women and be eye-catching. Whoa, the woman just turned her head slightly. The long tails behind her scattered at the same time, each pretending to be indifferent and started wandering around. And when she turned around again, these guys followed her again. Seeing this, a trace of helplessness flashed in the blonde beauty's eyes. Sometimes, being too good-looking is also a kind of helplessness. Of course she would not choose to take action directly just for these slight offenses. Soon, she came to the notice board of the town, took out the illustrated magazine, unfolded it, and posted it on the notice board. This time, a slightly bolder man approached the notice board. He carefully glanced at the contents of the pictorial. Except for the portrait of an extremely handsome man. There is also a line of small words at the bottom, missing person notice. If anyone sees this person, please contact me as soon as possible. Anyone who provides valid information will be greatly thanked. Seeing this, a trace of jealousy flashed in his eyes. No other reason, just because the man in the pictorial is so handsome. Miss, may I ask who you are above? Stimulated by jealousy, the man asked sourly. The blonde beauty hesitated for a moment and finally responded. He is mine husband. Her face turned slightly red, a trace of embarrassment flashed in her eyes, and then she said with absolute certainty. Hearing this, the jealousy in the man's eyes became more and more obvious. Before he could speak, the blonde beauty spoke with a hint of expectation. Have you seen him anywhere? Can you tell me? Hearing the sound, the man didn't lie, he just shook his head sourly. Seeing this, the blonde beauty's eyes darkened. At this moment, a beautiful woman with short black hair trotted up to her. She was panting, her face flushed with exhaustion. Tsunade-sama, there's news from the village. I hope you will go back and succeed 5th Hokage. Shizune said breathlessly to Tsunade. Hearing the sound, Tsunade just frowned slightly, and she spoke to Shizuru without looking back. Shizune, how many times have I told you? Girls should be dignified and not be so impetuous in doing things. As he spoke, Tsunade gently smoothed the wrinkles on the husband search notice in front of him. Shizune, who was already running out of breath, bent over and stroked his knees, lowered his head and panted heavily. Until a moment later, after Shizune felt her breathing became slightly smoother, she slowly stood up and said. Also, and, third generation, Mr. Third Generation has returned to the village. Although it was just a short sentence, Tsunade's calm movement suddenly shocked the whole room, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. The next second, she turned around with lightning speed and grabbed Shizune, who still couldn't calm down. Shizune said in an excited voice while shaking her head. What did you say? Can you say that again? Present. Poor Shizune was shaken to pieces by Tsunade's strange power. She spoke against the weakness that had turned into a mosquito-repellent incense. I said, Third Generation Sama, you have returned to the village. Shizune said again in a weak tone. Hearing this, Tsunade looked stunned for a moment, and then a trace of ecstasy flashed in her eyes again. Go back to the village. At that moment, Tsunade dragged Shizune beside him and started running wildly. Under Tsunade's strange power, he could only be passively dragged around. And this is painful for Shizune. In order to deliver the news to Tsunade as soon as possible, Shizune had been working non-stop and was panting from exhaustion. Now he was dragged away by Tsunade again, which almost killed Shizune. Tsunade-sama, I promised that girls should be more dignified. Shizune complained secretly in his mind. But the next second, Shizune looked at Tsunade's back and secretly blessed him in his heart. I hope Tsunade-sama can really gain happiness this time. Then, since Third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke chose to retire quietly and left Konoha, Tsunade dropped everything and began to search for traces of fungi in the ninja world. But in the vast ninja world, if you want to find someone in the vast ninja world, it is undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Not long ago, Tsunade got the news from nowhere. It seems that Fusuke has been seen far away from the land of fire. Ever since, Tsunade just came to this remote town. For many years, Tsunade has never found a trace of Fusuke. Even though Fusuke was tricked into returning to Konoha several times, Tsunade missed the reunion with Fusuke due to various coincidences. At this moment, after learning that Uchiha Fusuke has returned to Konoha, Tsunade naturally wanted to return home long ago. Advertisement. Master liar. This time, I will never let you escape again. Tsunade bit her lip and swore secretly in her heart, her jewel-like eyes full of determination. Konoha, land of the Hyuga clan. After some dressing up. Ignoring the surprised looks of the Hyuga clan members, Hyuga Lotus stepped out of the door once again. In the midst of the Hyuga clan, looking at the leaving figure of Hyuga Lotus, Hyuga Hazashi turned around, looked at Hiyashi beside him with complicated eyes and said, "Brother, in this matter of competing for the position of Hokage, can I get the support of third generation through my clan sister?" Hearing this, Hyuga Hiyashi's expression did not change and his eyes were extremely calm. "Do you still remember why the clan elder sister succeeded the clan leader?" After a while, Hiyashi did not answer Hazashi's question, but chose to ask a rhetorical question. "Of course I remember." Hyuga Hazashi nodded, a trace of reminiscence flashed in his eyes. A dozen years ago, at that time, it was the time when the leadership of the Hyuga clan was changing. At that time, the last old patriarch of the Hyuga clan was Hazashi and Hiyashi's father. Logically speaking, the position of the new clan leader should be handed over to Hyuga Hiyashi. But before the old patriarch died, he insisted on his own way and passed the position of patriarch to Hyuga Renka. Hyuga Hiyashi was puzzled at first. Until later, I heard that the new leader of the Uchiha clan was actually Uchiha Ayako. Only then did Hyuga Hiyashi understand the old patriarch's good intentions. I decided to hand over the position of clan leader to the child Lionwa. Father, why? Of course it is to leave a layer of insurance for the Hyuga clan. Why? Is it because of the relationship between the clan sister and the third generation? Yes, you still don't understand the power of Uchiha Fusuke. One day you will know my good intentions. Recalling everything in the past, Hyuga Hiyashi now only feels that the past is like smoke. Brother, what do you want to say? Hazashi asked with a puzzled expression, his eyes full of doubts. I want to say, Hazashi, you've crossed the line. How can we allow you and me to comment on the position of Hokage? Do you really think that if you are nominated, you will really have a chance to compete for the Hokage? Looking at his younger brother in front of him, Hyuga Hiyashi's eyes flashed with hatred. I'm sorry, brother, it's me who is stupid. Hearing this, Hazashi's expression changed slightly and he immediately apologized to Hyuga Hiyashi. Hazashi, you have to understand. You can only take the position of Hokage if Master Fang wants you to take it. He doesn't want you to be. No one can do it. In the end, Hyuga Hiyashi could only sigh deeply and said, as for the clan sister, let her be. Hyuga will be stable as long as she is around. Thinking of Hyuga Renka's leaving figure, Hyuga Hiyashi's eyes flashed with helplessness. As the ultimate stay at home, Hyuga can only leave the house for one thing. Not long after, Hyuga Lotus came to the Uchiha tribe and walked straight towards the depths of the tribe. Ignoring the shocked looks from the Uchiha tribesmen along the way, Renka walked straight into Ayako's door. As two female legends, active in the history of Konoha. Rumors about the relationship between the two had been overwhelming in the streets of Konoha. But no matter what the rumors say, there is always one thing that is recognized by the public. That is, the relationship between the two seems to be very poor. Therefore, Hyuga Lotus appeared in front of Uchiha Ayako. This is considered the sun coming out in the west. See the visit of Hyuga Lotus. Uchiha Ayako didn't show any surprise at all. She seemed to have expected Renka's arrival. Uchiha Ayako showed a beautiful and bright smile. It's Xiao Lianhua, welcome. Sit down, she said to Hyuga Lianhua enthusiastically, and at the same time warmly invited Lianhua. Hear the words. Hyuga Renua frowned slightly. That cold, beautiful face instantly showed a chill that could not be seen from thousands of miles away. Faced with Uchiha Ayako's invitation, she did not choose to comply. I hate it when you call me that. She just stood there and said coldly. Quote. Quote. Xiao Lianhua, you're still so awkward. Ayako smiled brightly again, but a hint of danger flashed in her eyes. What about him? Hyuga Lotus cherishes words like gold. He asked Ayako in a voice that was too cold to pay for his life. Have no idea. Ayako just smiled and shook her head. Wen Sheng, Hyuga Lotus. Although his expression did not change, a heart-stopping chill suddenly erupted from his body. You promised me. Advertisement. I'll keep him this time. You lied to me. Hyuga Renua said word for word. It's hard to imagine that someone with such a cold temperament would say such a long paragraph at once. With every word she spoke, the coldness on her body became more obvious. By the time he finished speaking, Lianhua's eyes as pure as glass had become completely white. Invisible intimidation radiated from her eyes. That was no less powerful than Mangekyo Sharingan's pupil surge. Shua. At the same time, Ayako's eyes also turned into a state of heart-shaped windmills. A poppy-like aura that was both charming and dangerous also burst out from her body. The two women were tit for tat for a while, neither of them willing to back down. Until much later, it was Ayako who spoke again. I'll do anything for Fusuke. Do you have such a consciousness? Ayako still asked with a smile, but there was a sense of danger in her tone that sent chills down the spine. Hyuga Renka returned coldly. She still cherished words like gold, but her eyes were full of determination. Seeing this, Uchiha Ayako's eyes returned to the state of 3 Magatama again, and the dangerous aura on her body suddenly stopped. Don't worry, Bu Lianhua. I'll keep him, but you must listen to me. Ayako smiled coquettishly again, her charming eyes filled with mystery that no one could see through. Hearing this, the biting coldness on Hyuga Lianhwa's body gradually subsided and turned into that cold look again. Good. What should I do? After a long silence, she asked coldly. Very good. I'll tell you now. With that said, Ayako slowly walked up to Renua and whispered something in her ear. After a while, Hyuga Lotus left the Uchiha tribe. Ayako was once again the only one left in the courtyard. Uchiha Ayako stood in the courtyard and pondered for a moment. It wasn't until a long time later that Ayako returned to the house. Bang. Then, she formed a seal with her hands and summoned a black crow. Ga. As the 3 Magatama in Ayako's eyes moved slightly, the crow flew out along the window as if it had received some order. Then, Ayako sat quietly by the window, seeming to be waiting for something. Another moment passed. Lord Patriarch. A man wearing an Anbu mask suddenly appeared in front of Ayako's window, and then knelt down on one knee respectfully. Just by looking at this person's elusiveness, you can see that his strength, money is good, is impressive. Where was Fusuke last night? Ayako asked softly. It was as if just mentioning the word, Fusuke, made her attitude become extremely gentle. Fusuke-sama, I spent the night yesterday at the home of a female ninja named Uchiha Kuranai. Anbu man hesitated for a moment, and then told Uchiha the truth. At that moment, Ayako's infinitely tender expression froze, and dangerous murderous intent suddenly burst out from her eyes. Seeing this, a drop of cold sweat instantly dropped from Anbu man's forehead. What about today? He did something, Ayako asked expressionlessly. Reporting to the clan leader, Master Fusuke went to the Hokage building early this morning. It hasn't come out until now. Anbu man replied again. I see. Find out all the information about this, Yuhi Hong, and bring it back to me. Ayako opened her mouth and ordered to the Anbu man. Anbu man's body trembled, and he secretly thought that this little girl named Shihi Hong was going to be in bad luck. But as the saying goes, a dead Taoist friend will never die a poor Taoist. Yes, Mr. Patriarch. Of course he would not disobey Ayako for an insignificant person. Go down. After a brief inquiry, Yuan Zi planned to send Anbu man away. Lord Patriarch, At this moment, Anbu man struggled to speak. He clenched his fists as if he wanted to say something. Rest assured, everything is under my control. But unexpectedly, Ayako just spoke calmly, interrupting Anbu man's unspoken words. Yes. At that moment, Anbu male immediately lowered his head and responded. Go and carry out Ayako's arrangements. After Anbu left, they were confused. Uchiha Ayako's originally stiff expression gradually turned helpless. A fool would rather wander than go home. She murmured softly, with a trace of resentment flashing in her eyes. Sunset red. Ayako recited the name silently, her eyes lost in thought as she didn't know what she was thinking. Chapter 57. Well, I seem to be in love. Advertisement. It's getting late. Uchiha Fusuke walked out of a room with a large, forbidden, sign on the door. In front of the room door, there are several Anbu members who are on duty 24 hours a day. The reason why the security here is so strict. It's because in this room, all the top secret information and mission data of Konoha's past are sealed. Seeing Fusuke walking out, several people saluted respectfully at the same time. Third generation Sama. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Fusuke just nodded lightly. But several Anbu could clearly see it. Compared with when he went in the morning, Fang Ji's face was obviously a little gloomy at this moment. Several people looked at each other and said nothing. Just watching Uchiha Fusuke walk away. On the way, walk through the Hokage building. Fusuke's eyes were floating, and his face was downcast. He didn't know what he was thinking. Starting early this morning, Fusuke dived into the top secret data room. He looked through all the mission records and member information of the Konoha Security Department and the Uchiha clan in the past 10 years. What he learned made him feel a little heavy. As we all know, ninjas usually conduct activities in teams of 4. And according to the task record, for more than 10 years, every Uchiha ninja has performed tasks. Among the team members, the proportion of people of the same race is increasing year by year. This shows that since Fang's retirement, Uchiha's isolation from the village once again became serious. And in all relevant task records, whether it is Jonin class, Anbu or Hokage, the evaluation of Uchiha ninja is very average or even dissatisfied. Only within the guard force, Uchiha is still praised highly. But the so-called Konoha Security Department is just the private territory of the Uchiha family. There is a saying that goes well. Self-proclaimed strengths are often the shortcomings that most destroy you. If God wants it to die, it must first let it go crazy. Arrogance and conceit are always the main causes of destruction. Just like in the original, the top brass of Konoha were always dissatisfied with Uchiha. There were many targets, but what led to the ultimate demise of the Uchiha clan? It was still due to their gradually colliding pride and conceit. If Uchiha in the original work is compared to a mountain that is about to avalanche, then Uchiha Itachi was just the person who happened to sneeze at the foot of the mountain. Even if Itachi doesn't take action, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo will also attack Uchiha sooner or later. Then it will be nothing more than a lose-lose situation for both sides. Itachi's actions minimized Konoha's losses. Just like this moment. Facing such an expanded Uchiha clan, the four of them couldn't help but feel a little worried. Ayako, what are you thinking about? Fusuke rubbed his head and said to himself, feeling a little dull in his heart. Logically speaking, with Ayako's ability and intelligence, Uchiha shouldn't have fallen into the situation he is in now. Gradually, in Fusuke's heart, everything about Ayako gradually became a mystery. His intuition told him that Ayako seemed to be planning something. But no matter how much he thought, he still couldn't get a clue. At this time, in the distance, a bright light suddenly appeared in front of Yinji's eyes. Fusuke raised his eyebrows slightly and subconsciously moved closer. It was completely dark outside now, and most of the ninjas working in the Hokage building had gone home from get-off work. There are not many people who are so busy in the Hokage building right now. As Fusuke gradually approached the light source, he saw the busy figure. It was none other than Nara Shikamaru, the squad leader and think tank of Konoha Jonin. It's normal for Shikado to work overtime late at night. After all, Minato is in extremely bad condition right now, and he, the Jonin squad leader, needs to help Minato handle some of the work. The sound of Fusuke's arrival also alerted Nara Shikamaru. Master Fang, why is Dao here? He raised his head and asked in an unbelievable tone. After all, who is familiar with Fusuke? In the blood flowing in his innate working body. Commuting to and from get off work at the right time, and, if you can, just hang out, if you don't, just hang out, are the credo of this third Hokage. It was dark outside, and it was already past the time to get off work. Uchiha Fusuke unexpectedly appeared in the Hokage building. Nara Shikamaru's eyes were full of surprise. You're not Tsukumo, here to tease me, are you? Shikamaru's eyes were full of vigilance and defensiveness as he muttered in a low voice, not believing at all that the person in front of him was Uchiha Fusuke. Fusuke, are you polite? Ahem. Well, little dear, thank you for your hard work. Do your stuff. At that moment, although he felt a little unhappy, Fusuke still pretended not to care, waved his hand and prepared to leave. Ah, here a familiar nickname. Nara Shikamaru was shocked and confirmed that the person in front of him was really Uchiha Fusuke. Go slowly, Fusuke-sama. At that moment, Shikamaru's expression changed, and he immediately sent Fusuke off seriously. Advertisement. It turns out to be Mr. Fusuke, the sun is rising in the west. Nara looked like, honey, come out and see God, and said in wonder. Far away, Uchiha, who hadn't gone far yet, trembled and his face turned dark. It's not over, right? Hard. The fist is hard. But when he thought about the hard work Lu Dao had to face, he still chose, the adults don't remember the villain's faults. After Fusuke left, Nara Shikamaru was still there sighing that, I can only see this once in my life, when the miracle happened. Fusuke looked up at the sky, and suddenly felt a little entangled in his heart, and began to think about how to spend tonight. Of course, the fact that he was picked up by a beautiful girl last night could only be regarded as an accident to him. He can't just stay in someone's house without knowing what's going on, right? Why don't you go and stay at Tsukumo's place for one night? Uchiha Fusuke thought to himself secretly. Think about it. The only person in the village who was familiar enough to stay overnight without being out of place is Hatake Tsukumo. As for sleeping in the office, this was never on Fusuke's radar. At this time, a cute figure huddled up suddenly stood up from the front and appeared in front of Feng Jie in 2 steps. Fusuke-sama, I'm here to take you home. Yuhi Kurenai said softly to Fusuke with a little face that was slightly red from the cold. It was the middle of winter. Even in the land of fire, which has spring-like weather all year round, it is inevitable that there is a cold wave everywhere. For a ninja like Yuhi Kurenai who specializes in illusions, it is still difficult to ignore the cold current in the middle of winter. She was wearing a furry wool coat, which tightly wrapped her slender and graceful body, making her look very girlish. Looking at Yuhi Kurenai who suddenly appeared in front of him, a hint of surprise flashed in Uchiha Fusuke's eyes. Even though he is already a genuine veteran. But looking at Yuri Hong in front of him, he couldn't help but feel a feeling in his heart. The warm feeling of your lovely girlfriend coming to pick you up from get off work. This feeling was something he had never felt before. Looking at Kurenai Yuhi, whose face was red from the cold, Fusuke knew that she might have been waiting here for a long time. Seeing this, Fusuke's heart softened. He directly took Yuri's red and tender little hand. Immediately, a chakra of yang escape attribute was passed from Fusuke's hand to the girl's body, helping her dissipate all the chill. Feeling the warm touch from her palm, a hint of shame flashed in Yuri's beautiful eyes. In Fusuke's heart, his purpose is simple and his motives are pure. He was just helping the girl in front of him to keep out the cold. But in the girl's mind, Fang's actions represent a completely different meaning. Woo, Fusuke-sama's hands are so warm. Is this Mr. Fang's initiative? Shiri Hong thought timidly in her heart, and Fang also showed a hint of sweetness in her heart. Then I have to take the initiative to respond to Fusuke-sama. At that moment, the girl suppressed her shyness and held Uchiha Fusuke's big hand with her backhand. Then, she didn't dare to look at Fusuke's cheek at all, she just turned her head and said in a low voice. Fusuke-sama, let's go home. Feeling Yuhi Hong's hand being held actively. He just thought it was a girl who was greedy for the warmth provided by the Yang escape chakra. Although Fusuke felt a little strange in his heart, he didn't think about it in detail. After all, it's not a problem for Grandpa to take his granddaughter shopping, right? Perhaps. With this thought, Yin Jae just responded with a smile for a week. His eyes returned to Yuhi Kurenai's perspective. Back to morning. Because I had too many random thoughts last night, BCBF, my little head was in a mess and I went to bed too late. By the time Yuri Hong woke up, it was already 3 o'clock in the morning. Yuhi Hong looked at the dazzling sun outside the window, and she immediately twisted her soft black hair into a chicken coop in a panic. Ouch, that's bad, it's too late. Fusuke-sama doesn't think I'm a sloppy woman. The girl screamed in her heart, her face full of pressure. After a while, she opened the door carefully and stuck her little head out. Fang, sir. Yuhi Hong spoke cautiously, her eyes full of nervousness. It seemed as if this was not her home, but on a battlefield full of jungles. There was no response from the empty living room for a long time. Then she walked out of the bedroom and searched around the room. It wasn't until she saw the clean and new guest bedroom that Yuhi Hong's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. Obviously, Uchiha Fusuke left long ago. Soon, Yuhi Kurenai saw a note left by Uchiha Fusuke on a table. The content is probably that he left first. If you need help with anything, you can go to the Hokage building to find him. Then, Yuhi Hong stood there blankly, feeling her fluctuating emotions, feeling a little confused inside. What's wrong with me? The girl asked confusedly in her heart. She had never cared so much about someone before meeting Uchiha Fusuke. After standing there for a long time, she just thought of something. Advertisement. Fusuke-sama, where will you go tonight? No, an old man. Yuhi Hong, who was still homeless, suddenly woke up. The girl's empathetic attribute was once again stimulated. Worry, shyness, joy, worry, nervousness. I can't tell what kind of complicated emotions I have. Finally, at 10 o'clock in the evening, Uchiha Fusuke still hadn't returned. She still chose to take the initiative. I just want to repay Master Fang for saving my life. The girl deceived herself in her heart. Later, she chose to step out of the house resolutely. After arriving in front of the Hokage building and waiting for a long time, Uchiha Fusuke finally appeared. Until now, holding Uchiha Fusuke's hand and walking on the streets of Konoha, Yuhi Kurenai's mood changed again. Hey, isn't this the little girl from the Yuhi family? This is. On the roadside, an aunt greeted Kurenai Yuhi after seeing her, and then looked at Kurenai and Fusuke holding hands in confusion. Especially after seeing Fusuke's appearance, the aunt's eyes paused slightly. This young man is so handsome. But after taking a closer look, Big Mom didn't recognize Fusuke's identity. In Konoha village, most people can't bear to watch the activities. Ordinary people still make up the majority. The news of Uchiha Fusuke's return is currently only circulating among some ninjas. For ordinary residents, the Third Hokage is undoubtedly a legendary character. Even if they look at the Hokage rock every day, when Fusuke actually appeared in front of them, it was definitely difficult to recognize him. Just like your friend, one day he really fell in love with a certain female star. When they appear in front of you, you will only sigh that this woman is so beautiful, but will not associate her identity with a star. This is the passerby effect. Meeting an acquaintance, Ju Hong was obviously a little nervous and at a loss. Aunt Mitsui. This is my friend. I heard that my aunt asked about their relationship. After thinking for a moment with a red face, she gave a reply of, friend, in a cohesive manner. The aunt showed a meaningful anti-smile, and then left wisely. On the road, people kept saying hello to Hong. Kurenai Yuhi also responded obediently using this rhetoric. Feeling the envious looks coming from all around, Hong's mood changed again. Gradually, she seemed to have figured out what the unresolved feelings in her heart were. At this moment, the girl thought of her deceased mother for no reason. Mom, I seem to be in love. Yuhi Hong said Nunuo in her heart, her big bright eyes full of sweet emotions. And beside her, Uchiha Fusuke looked at Kurenai who seemed to be very popular and well behaved. There was not only some emotion in my heart. It would be great if I could have a daughter like this. Think of this. Fusuke only felt that his action of holding Yuhi Hong's little hand made him feel more at ease. After a while, Yuhi Hong, who is full of good wife attributes, has already prepared a table of dishes. Tasty. After Uchiha Fusuke tasted it, he couldn't help but praise it. Faced with Fusuke's compliment, Yuhi Kurenai just blushed and kept smiling, looking a little silly and cute. A warm atmosphere came over me. In this warm atmosphere, Uchiha can't help but feel emotional. He subconsciously looked at the empty space beside Hong's body. I imagined that if a wife character could appear here, then this would be a warm family of 3. Yuhi Hong. You are the daughter, and your whole family is a daughter. Suddenly, the figures of Uchiha Ayako, Hyuga Renka, Tsunade, and other girls flashed before his eyes one after another. Until the end, a silver-haired woman with a gentle face appeared in front of Fusuke. She didn't speak, she just smiled gently at Fusuke. Suddenly, Uchiha Fusuke's eyes flashed with a hint of affection and nostalgia. Fusuke-sama. Yuhi Kurenai looked at Fusuke, who was dazed in the air, tilted her head in confusion and asked. The next second, Fusuke's fantasy was broken, and his eyes instantly returned to calm. Nothing, just staying with you. It feels very comfortable. Uchiha Fusuke said to Yuhi Kurenai seriously. Hearing the sound, Yuri's red face instantly turned red, and wisps of steam came out of her head. Obviously, she misunderstood Fusuke's words again. Just when Yuhi Hong was shy and didn't know how to respond. Uchiha Fusuke's next words made her freeze on the spot. I wish I had a daughter like you. Fusuke spoke with a longing look on his face, and there was a hint of compassion in his words. Chapter 58, The Night of Shocking Changes, Konoha under heavy fog. Advertisement. Female. Daughter. Quote question mark. Quote. Yuhi Hong murmured stupidly. In this second, Yuri Hong's heart experienced a journey from heaven to hell, and then to the Taklamakan desert. Then, her complexion turned from red to white, and finally to purple. A hint of shame and anger suddenly appeared in the corner of his bright eyes. Fusuke-sama, you are the most annoying. I'm ignoring you. At that moment, the girl's attitude changed completely. She got up angrily and returned to her room. Snapped. Looking at the door that was forcefully closed, Uchiha Fusuke's eyes were full of doubts. Did I say something wrong? A certain old man thought silently in confusion. Just when a certain Uchiha old man was sitting there doubting his life. Suddenly, Fusuke's eyes gradually changed from confused and blank to sharp and deep. Then, Fusuke took steps towards Kurenai Yuhi's door. Inside the house, Yuhi Hong slammed the door on the door frame and got into the quilt. Just when she was about to vent her anger on the innocent doll on the bed. The girl lying flat on the bed felt a little raw pain in her chest. Then, she stood up subconsciously. I took off my shirt and prepared to take off the obstructive bra. Brothers who don't know what it is, do it by themselves. At this time, accompanied by a loud bang, snapped. The door behind Yuhi was kicked open. The girl, who still had a hint of mist in her eyes, suddenly turned her head, her eyes full of surprise. It was no one else who caught my eye. It was a certain old Uchiha whom she kindly took in. Ah! The girl covered her chest and let out a piercing scream. For a while, Yuhi Hong's eyes changed from anger and embarrassment to shock and panic, to disappointment and fear. In the girl's disappointed eyes, Uchiha Fusuke quickly approached her with a calm expression and held her in his arms. With Fusuke's speed, of course the girl wouldn't have time to react at all. Fusuke's hand gently caressed Yuhi Hong's slender waist, and the skin-like touch was transmitted to his palm. Fusuke didn't notice how soft and fragrant the almost half-fruited girl in his arms was. His eyes did not linger on the girl's body at all. Uchiha Fusuke looked calmly at the empty window. Then, a light blue Rasengan appeared in his hand instantly. Boom. At this time, a ghostly figure suddenly burst out of the window, holding a sharp blue kunai in his hand. The moment of sudden death. He then came straight towards Fusuke and Yuhi Kurenai. The poisonous blade in her hand was directly aimed at Yuhi Hong's fair, delicate neck. In response, Uchiha Fusuke just gently pushed the Rasengan forward in his hand. What a coincidence. The fast-moving assassin crashed into the Rasengan. Boom. Terrifying fluctuations burst out from Rasengan along with turbulent air currents. PFF'd. The assassin only had time to spit out a mouthful of blood. The next moment, the unknown assassin crashed through the wall behind him like a cannonball and flew out. Yuhi Kurenai still hasn't figured out what happened. Uchiha Fusuke had taken off his black robe and put it on Yuhi Hong's body. Is everything okay? Fusuke asked softly to the girl in his arms. No, it's okay. Hearing this, Yuhi Hong seemed to have just come back to her senses and subconsciously replied. This moment, only at sunset did I wake up. Her life was saved again by Uchiha Fusuke. As Yuhi Hong's words fell, whizzing, accompanied by a slight noise. A white-haired man wearing a mask appeared in front of Fusuke. Third generation Sama, Anbu, Scarecrow, reports to you. May I ask if your safety is okay? As soon as he appeared, the white-haired Anbu immediately asked. This guy is Kakashi, right? Looking at the Anbu ninja with extremely striking features in front of him, Uchiha Fusuke secretly complained in his heart. Due to Anbu's regulations, all Anbu members are called by code names when performing tasks. Of course Kakashi can't announce his name openly. Of course, complaints are complaints. We still have to go through the process that needs to be done. Fusuke just shook his head slightly and silently let go of Yuhi Kurenai's delicate body. At that moment, Yuhi Hong tightened her loose black robe tightly and hid behind Feng Jie with a blushing face. After all, under the robe, she was a veritable vacuum at this moment. Ever since Fusuke returned to Konoha, there was at least one class of Anbu ninjas hanging around him every day. The purpose is to protect him. Certainly, it is indeed difficult to say who is protecting whom. Advertisement. But this was also due to the village's regulations, so Fusuke naturally had no choice but to accept it silently. Until then, Fusuke was assassinated. Anbu, who noticed the movement, naturally came over immediately. Subsequently, 3 Anbu appeared together wearing different masks. 2 of them were also carrying a corpse, which was the assassin who previously assassinated Uchiha Fusuke. Fusuke raised his eyebrows slightly. When he repelled the assassin earlier, he did not kill him and spared this man's life. Report to Lord Third Generation. The assassin committed suicide by taking poison. An Anbu reported in due course. Fusuke didn't say much. This situation was also expected by him. Obviously, this is a death. Uchiha Fusuke walked up to the assassin and took off the assassin's mask. Under the mask is a somewhat ordinary face. But despite this, he still has an extremely conspicuous feature. This extremely obvious feature also directly exposed the assassin's identity. His eyes were blank, and his pupils turned out to be a strange pure white. In his previous life, he must have been an old cataract who could live on subsistence allowances for 10 years. But in the ninja world, these eyes are as famous as Sharingan, that is, white eyes. In other words, this is a dead warrior from Hyuga. Seeing the white eyes of this assassin, the 4 Anbu present fell into silence. This assassin not only killed Hokage, but also implicated Hyuga, a wealthy family in Konoha. The situation is serious. It has already exceeded the imagination of these 4 Anbu. There is only one thing they can do now: silence. Where to go and how to deal with it, all they can do is follow Uchiha Fusuke's arrangements. Call. Uchiha Fusuke exhaled slightly, a hint of greatness flashed in his eyes. He turned his head slightly and looked directly at the assassin's pale pupils. As the 3 Magatama in Fusuke's eyes rotated slightly, he began trying to read the assassin's memories. But soon, his gaze paused again. Because in the mind of this dead soldier, all the memories have been cleared, and some are just blank. It's not difficult to read people's memories. In the ninja world, many ninjas can do it. But it is countless times more difficult to clear a person's memory. In Fusuke's knowledge, there are very few people who can do this. And among them, it happens to have an ability that he is most familiar with. That is, Mangekyo Sharingan. Thinking of this, the coldness in Uchiha Fusuke's eyes flashed away. After calming down his divergent thoughts, Fusuke ignored the 4 Anbu in front of him. He first turned around and went to Yuhi Hong, who was still a little dazed. I'm sorry, Red. Destroy your home. Don't worry, I will compensate you for a bigger house. Uchiha Fusuke whispered apologetically to Yuhi Kurenai. It is clear. The current situation that the Yuhi Red society is facing is all because of Uchiha Fusuke's involvement. If not, apart from her looks, Chunin was ordinary and had no assassination value. After hearing Fusuke's words, Yuhi Hong seemed to react. Quote. Woo. She opened her mouth, but before she could say the words in her throat, warm tears welled up in the corners of her eyes uncontrollably. For a time, all kinds of emotions in Yuhi Hong burst out instantly. She was frightened, but also aggrieved and helpless. I could only throw myself into Uchiha Fusuke's arms, hold the wind tightly and sob softly. The assassin is pretty good. Just now, the sharp blade was only 1 inch away from the girl. This also made Yuhi Hong clearly perceive the threat to her life. Don't worry, it's okay. I will protect you. Uchiha Fusuke gently rubbed Yuhi Kurenai's little head and comforted her again. Listen to the gentle and elegant voice in your ears. Yuhi Hong's trembling heart gradually calmed down. Then, another touch flashed through her heart, and it beat violently. Kurenai Yuhi thought about it again. In that bloody night. It is also this familiar embrace, and this intoxicating peace of mind. After a long time, the girl responded to Fang with a thick nasal voice. Seeing the sunset is no longer a serious problem. Now, initiate the highest level of protection for her. Unless you get my order, it cannot be lifted. Fusuke turned his head and ordered to the 4 Anbu who turned into plaster in front of him. Yes, X4. The 4 Anbu responded in unison. Kaka. Cough cough. It's a scarecrow. You come with me. As if he thought of something again, Fusuke once again said to the striking white-haired one among the 4. Yes. Kakashi nodded immediately. Apparently, he knew it too. Advertisement. Because of his striking white hair, his identity is difficult to hide. But unfortunately, the rules still have to be followed. Please give me flowers. Sorry, Red. Now I need to take care of some things. Anbu will protect you around the clock. Fusuke said goodbye to Yuhi Kurenai. Hearing Fusuke call her name, Yuhi Hong's little heart trembled violently again. Well, I understand, she said softly in a voice that sounded like a mosquito's moan, and her eyes seemed a little wandering. Seeing this, she just thought it was because she hadn't recovered from the shock just now. Fusuke no longer delayed, ordered Kakashi to take the assassin's body, and left here. After Fusuke left, the 3 Anbu said politely to Kurenai Yuhi. Miss Yuhi Kurenai, please get out of here with us. Obviously, after this assassination, this place was not suitable for Yuhi Kurenai to continue to stay. Hearing this, feeling the chill on his upper body, Yuri's pretty face turned red again. Okay, I'll change my clothes first. In a daze, she seemed to feel a strange feeling coming from the skin that Fusuke had touched before. This also made Yuri's beautiful eyes tremble slightly. She was completely frightened just now. As a result, I couldn't taste the taste. At this moment, Shihihong only felt ripples in the lake in her heart. Subsequently, she went to another bedroom and changed into clothes that were more comfortable for her heartbeat. After hesitating for a moment, she finally hugged the black robe she had changed into. Feeling the familiar scent on the black robe, a bold idea suddenly appeared in Yuhi Hong's heart. Could it be, as the so-called Daughter, the unique son of Fang Tianren. Thinking of this, the girl's face turned red again. Soon, she shook her head vigorously, trying to get rid of the messy thoughts. But once this thought came to mind, it was like opening the door to the abyss. She started to think about it unconsciously. It wasn't until Anbu urged her outside the door that she suddenly realized and left with the three Anbu with a shy face. This way, Uchiha Fusuke and Kakashi are rushing towards the Hokage building quickly. Third generation Sama, something has happened. Minato Sama, please go and discuss it quickly. Just halfway through, they saw another Anbu ninja wearing a mask coming towards the two of them. The Anbu was a little surprised when he saw Uchiha suddenly appearing. After confirming that it was correct, she spoke to Uchiha Fusuke again. This is a female Anbu. The voice seems a little childish. Probably around 12 or 13 years old. Listening to the familiar voice of this Anbu, Fusuke remembered that this person was the one who went to the Uchiha tribe to call him before. What happened? Fusuke asked with a frown. He had just been assassinated here, and something happened to Minato as well. No matter how you look at it, it seems a bit too coincidental. Quote. Killed. Female Anbu said in a low voice, with a hint of sadness in her tone. What? Hearing this, Kakashi immediately exclaimed. Even Fusuke's expression froze for a moment after hearing the female Anbu's words. It was obvious that he had only met Narashidao not long ago. But I didn't expect it to be just for a moment. The two of them have been separated forever. Lu Dao's words, you can only see this once in this life. It actually came true. A cold luster bloomed in Fusuke's eyes, and overwhelming murderous aura burst out from his body. Fang, for adults. Feeling this boundless murderous aura, the female Anbu instantly felt difficulty breathing. She shrank and spoke to Fusuke, her voice a little painful. Sorry, I lost my temper. After hearing the voice of female Anbu, Feng Jie realized his gaffe. Present, he directly put his hands on the shoulders of female Anbu and Kakashi. At that moment, the Flying Thunder God technique was instantly displayed. An alley not far from the Hokage building has been tightly blocked at this time. This is the only way for Naradir to go home every day. He was also attacked and killed here. Nara Shikamaki's body still lies in the alley. His eyes were wide open, and his death was miserable. A huge penetrating wound penetrated Nara Shikamaki from back to front, from the heart, and pinned them to the ground. Namikaze Minato stood quietly next to Nara Shikamaki's body, closing his eyes and wondering what he was thinking. Whoosh, accompanied by a slight sound. Three figures appeared next to Minato. The visitors were none other than the three Fusukes. Hearing the sound, Minato slowly opened his eyes, a trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. Obviously, the death of Nara Shikamaki also had a huge blow to Minato. See the arrival of Fusuke. Fusuke-sama, here we come. Minato greeted Fusuke with a sad expression. In response, Fusuke just nodded slightly. Then he inspected Nara Shikamaru's body with cold eyes. Chapter 59, Tracking Down. The long-lost bloody Shinigami. Advertisement. After some investigation, Fusuke suddenly noticed that Nara Shikamaki had the character, house, on his hand. This should be the clue he left with his own blood before he died. Seeing that Fusuke also noticed the clue of the word, household. Minato no longer hesitated and slowly told Fusuke the preliminary investigation results in a dull voice. Based on inference, Shikado must have been attacked and killed by many people in this alley. Judging from the wounds on the body, the number of people who attacked Ludao was about 5. The strength is at least elite Jonin. This means. As he spoke, Minato's tone suddenly paused, and then he spoke again in a more muffled voice. The one who killed Shikado. He is the ninja of the village. As Minato finished speaking, on one side, Hitaki Kakashi and female Anbu both trembled violently. Killing fellow villagers is an intolerable behavior in Konoha. And it is very simple for Minato to come to this conclusion. This is Konoha village, and it is very close to the Hokage building, in the heart of Konoha. The only person who can approach this position quietly is Konoha shinobi. After all, if an outsider really invades this position without saying a word, that would be a bit too underestimated of Konoha's defense system. Fusuke on the side was still staring blankly at the word, house, on the ground, without any intention of speaking. At this moment, Kakashi took the initiative to take a step forward and reported to Minato. Master 4th generation. Master 3rd generation was assassinated just now. The murderer is a ninja from the Hyuga clan. He has committed suicide by taking poison. With that said, Kakashi threw the body he was carrying in front of Minato. What? After hearing Kakashi's report, Minato looked shocked and his expression became serious. It seems that none of this is a coincidence. 19. They all want to be the Hokage. Minato connected the two things without thinking. Whether it is, Hokage is attacked, or, Jonin squad leader is killed, these two events are no small matter. And these two things happened at the same time. It can only mean that there must be a connection. And the only thing that connects the two together is campaigning for Hokage. Otherwise, there is no such thing as a coincidence in the world. Over there at Hyuga, this is really too deliberate. I don't think the other party will be the real murderer. Minato continued to analyze with a frown. In his opinion, since the murderer behind the scenes chose to send a dead man to assassinate Uchiha Fusuke, then the purpose is to pursue secrecy. But the assassin is a Hyuga ninja with extremely obvious characteristics. This behavior is completely contradictory. Thus, there is a bit of deliberate frame-up in this. No, Hyuga's suspicion cannot be completely ruled out. After all, Hyuga is also one of the Hokage candidates. Suddenly, Minato frowned again and said, overturning his previous conclusion. As the saying goes, true and false, false and true. At this point in time, it is very likely that the Hyuga family will take risks. Doing the opposite is a deliberate choice to confuse. Think before and after. At this moment, Minato was also a little undecided. At this moment, he set his sights on Fusuke, who had been silent for a long time. He seemed to be aware of Minato's gaze. Uchiha Fusuke, who had been silent for a long time, finally stood up slowly. He slowly looked away from the word, household, in Narashikato's hand, with a hint of coldness flashing in his eyes. Minato, leave this matter to me. I probably have an idea of what's going on. I will give Xiaolu justice. Uchiha Fusuke said silently, exuding a chilling aura. A strange color flashed in Namikaze Minato's eyes. He hadn't seen the master in front of him look like this for a long time. Most of the time though, Uchiha Fusuke always gives people the impression of being elegant and easygoing. But Minato knew it. That's just because they have never seen Fusuke take it seriously. Namikaze Minato still vaguely remembers it. When he was young, Uchiha Fusuke had a rather famous nickname in the ninja world. Its name is Scarlet Shinigami. Please, master. At that moment, Minato also said to Fusuke with a serious face. Hearing this title, Fang Ji's body trembled slightly. Over the years, in order to avoid creating controversy, the fourth Hokage accused Minato of relying on nepotism to become the leader. So on all occasions, Minato just calls Fusuke, Fusuke-sama. Hear the sound. Fusuke didn't say anything more, just disappeared with the body on the ground. This way, Uchiha Fusuke's figure flashed again. We have arrived at the gate of an antique and magnificent courtyard. Advertisement. Without much hesitation, Fusuke then set off and stepped into it. In the courtyard, at the same time, the body of the beautiful woman who had been sitting upright suddenly trembled. There was also a hint of unnoticeable joy in her beautiful glass-like eyes. Then, she stood up and ran towards the door. At the same time, Uchiha Fusuke also entered the courtyard. He looked at the door in front of him, a trace of reminiscence flashed in his eyes. Fusuke remembers the last time he came here. Still more than 20 years ago. 20 years have passed and nothing here has changed. It's just something Fusuke didn't expect. Now he came again because of this kind of thing. Wow. Suddenly, the door in front of Uchiha Fusuke was suddenly opened. A graceful figure appeared in front of Fusuke. In an instant, scarlet and pure white eyes looked at each other. Just like many years ago, the two of them were the same when they first started. Hyuga Renka stepped forward, as if wanting to go to Fusuke's side. But suddenly, boom, her feet suddenly slipped and she fell flat in front of Fusuke. Good thing. With the pair of proud cushions on her chest, her fall didn't seem to be serious. Seeing this, Uchiha Fusuke's eyes flashed with nostalgia and laughter. Because he vividly remembered that when they first met many years ago, Hyuga Renua also thrown him flat on the ground, as a greeting gift. He knelt down and gently held Leonwa's shoulders, trying to pull her up. Are you okay? Fusuke helped Renka up from the ground angrily. After getting up, Hyuga Leonwa was still expressionless, stroking her forehead with one hand, without any expression on her pretty face. But only Uchiha Fusuke can see it. Deep in Leonwa's colorless eyes, there was a trace of unnoticeable grievance. Be good, you are such a big man. How can you still fall flat on the ground? Uchiha Fusuke reached out helplessly and stroked Renua's silver hair, which was as bright and pure as the moonlight. Even though we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. But Fusuke's movements are still extremely skillful, as if he is grooming his own kitten. Feeling Fusuke's gentle caress, Leonwa's expression remained unchanged, but she tilted her head slightly. But in her extremely clear eyes, you can clearly see a hint of nostalgia. After a long time, Fusuke stopped. The two of them entered the house together. Inside the house, it's still the same tea table. Only this time, Hyuga Renka did not choose to sit across from him, but stayed beside Fusuke. Soon, with her graceful movements, a cup of fragrant tea was placed in front of Uchiha Fusuke. Thanks. Fusuke thanked him softly. He was just about to pick up the teacup, but found that Leonwa had already picked it up first. At that moment, Uchiha Fusuke's movements froze and he looked slightly embarrassed. Hot blow. Seeing Fusuke's embarrassed look, Leonwa immediately turned her face sideways and whispered in a calm voice. Subsequently, Leonwa blew the tea in the cup with sips. Although she still had a cold face. But her movements are full of inexplicable cuteness, especially her face that keeps getting rounder as she breathes. It looks a bit like a squirrel foraging for food. Such a cute gesture, when placed on Leonwa's cold and beautiful face, immediately produced a doubly cute effect. For a moment, Fusuke was stunned. After some artificial cooling. Fusuke, drink. Leonwa handed the teacup in her hand to Fusuke's hand, and then stared directly into Fusuke's eyes. Fusuke, who couldn't resist, could only accept the tea from Leonwa's hand. Under Renua's direct gaze, Fusuke drank the tea in his hand. Good tea. The sweet tea with a lingering fragrance on the lips and teeth went straight down Fusuke's throat, and he subconsciously praised it. Although there was still no change in Leonwa's face. One can see her thoughts from the beginning. That is, she is very happy. Wait until Fusuke puts down the teacup. Leonwa picked it up again and planned to continue the action of adding tea. Seeing that everything is going to develop in the direction of repeater. Fusuke hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop Lotus's movements and said. Leonwa, I won't drink the tea for now. I came to see you for something else. Fusuke knows it. With Leonwa's temperament, before getting a clear rejection, she could probably keep refilling the tea until dawn. Hearing Fusuke refuse, Leonwa's movements were suffocated and her head lowered slightly. See the subtle movements of the lotus. Uchiha Fusuke not only smiled slightly, but also had a hint of helplessness in his expression. Advertisement. Naturally, he knew Leonwa's character very well. If we say that there are levels of understanding of Hyuga Lotus, then Uchiha Fusuke is without a doubt, Renka's top understanding master. No doubt, Leonwa's actions just now meant that she was a little depressed. It's not that I don't like your tea, and it's not that I don't like you. It's just something else. In order to prevent Renua from continuing to feel depressed, Uchiha Fusuke quickly explained. Hearing the sound, Leonwa's face that had nodded slightly slowly raised its head again. She tilted her head slightly and looked at Fusuke beside her, her pure white eyelashes blinking slightly. Although Lien Hua's beautiful face remained unchanged, her eyes gave people a sparkling look. If we say that she was like a piece of ice in 10,000 years before. So at this moment, she is the fairy who comes to life in the painting. Just the difference in eyes is enough to bring about earth-shaking changes in people. Like, Renua stared into Fusuke's eyes and asked in a low voice. Like, Uchiha Fusuke smiled and answered in the affirmative. Hearing this, Lien Hua's sparkling eyes revealed a touching look. I like Fusuke too, she said again, with a trace of easily detectable joy in her tone. This is undoubtedly an extremely rare thing for Leonwa. Hearing this, Fusuke still just smiled gently. In his opinion, Hyuga Lotus Silk is like an unpolluted clear spring on the top of the snow-capped mountains. Others only find him cold and unapproachable, but only he knew that Leonwa was just too pure and too clean. Therefore, in Hyuga Renhua's mind, the definition of like may be different from that of most people. This kind of like should also be a very simple like. So Fusuke didn't take Renka's words seriously. Seemingly sensing Uchiha Fusuke's thoughts, Leonwa spoke in an extremely serious tone again. Fusuke the most. These 5 short words shocked Fusuke's heart. He turned his head to look at Lien Hua beside him in surprise. It's still those eyes that are as clear and moving as glass. But he found that from some unknown time, there was a hint of emotion in her eyes that was difficult for him to understand. But no matter what the emotion in Leonwa's eyes was, this moment is definitely not the time to reminisce about old feelings for Fusuke. Present, Uchiha Fusuke could only suppress the throbbing in his heart, and he said to Leonwa beside him with a straight face. Speaking of business, the Hyuga clan must give me an explanation for this matter. Fusuke spoke in a solemn voice and took out a summoning scroll. In the ninja world, summoning scroll cannot help but be used to summon summoning beasts. It can also be used to store and summon some items. As Fusuke unrolls the scroll, bang, there was a flash of white smoke, and a body appeared on the floor of the room. It is the Hyuga Death Soldier, who failed to assassinate Uchiha Fusuke not long ago and committed suicide by taking poison. Saw a corpse that suddenly appeared. Hyuga Renhua's expression remained unchanged. But for Fusuke, who is the Leonwa top understanding master, he has already seen her thoughts. Leonwa is disgusted with this man on the ground. This kind of disgust is not the disgust of the living towards the dead. It's about hating this man himself. In other words, when this man was alive, Leonwa knew him and hated him. This is undoubtedly a rare thing for Hyuga Lotus. Fusuke, who is familiar with Renka's temperament, understands. Leonwa's character is naturally indifferent, and there are not many people who can care about her. In Leonwa's eyes, most people are probably no more than ants on the roadside. No matter how stupid the behavior of an ant is, how can it arouse the disgust of a human being? After all, there are not many ants in this world that Leonwa can hate. What exactly is going on? Uchiha Fusuke stared at the Hyuga Lotus in front of him with burning eyes. No doubt, of all the events tonight, the Hyuga dead man on the ground is undoubtedly an extremely critical link and a very important piece of evidence. After surveying the scene where Narashikami was killed, in Fusuke's mind, he has already locked 3 suspect targets. No, don't even say suspect. Uchiha Fusuke is sure that the mastermind behind this must be one of the 3. And one of them is Hyuga Lotus in front of him. In other words, it is someone who is close to Hyuga Renka and has a good status in the Hyuga clan. In Fusuke's mind, Leonwa is the least suspicious and least likely of the 3 suspects. Therefore, he chose to proceed from simplicity to complexity, and first came to Hyuga for verification. At the same time, Fusuke also knew clearly. Hyuga Renka would never lie to him. Because of Leonwa's temperament, she would never lie. Even if he lies, he can't hide it from Fusuke, who is Renka's top understanding master. Finally, facing Fusuke's problem, Leonwa said coldly. I asked him to go. Although the tone is still cold. But to Fusuke's ears it was no less than a nuclear bomb going off. Chapter 60. Shocking, the iceberg goddess is actually a licker behind her back. Advertisement. Hyuga Renka's short sentence. But Uchiha Fusuke couldn't help but sit up straight. He looked at Hyuga Leonwa next to him in disbelief. He couldn't believe that these words actually came from Leonwa's mouth. But soon, Fusuke's face froze, he thought of another possibility, and his body relaxed again. He looked helplessly at Leonwa beside him and asked. What did you ask him to do? Hyuga Renka tilted his head expressionlessly. Then, she suddenly stretched out a hand and grabbed Fusuke's big hand. The touch of Leonwa's little hands is cold and delicate, like half-frozen gummy candy, which makes people unable to put it down. Before Fusuke could react, she took Fusuke's hand and placed it on her delicate and perfect face like an egg. For a moment, a smooth touch returned to Fusuke's palm. He was stunned for a moment, then raised his eyes and looked directly into Hyuga Leonwa's eyes. The beautiful eyes like lotus flowers and glass are still as indifferent as water. This time, even Uchiha Oka, the Renka top understanding master. It's hard to guess what she plans to do. This made Fusuke stunned on the spot. But Leonwa remained calm about this. Feeling the warm touch on her cheek, she tilted her head expressionlessly and rubbed Fusuke's palm. A trace of satisfaction flashed through the depths of his indifferent eyes at the right time. At this time, Fusuke realized belatedly that there seemed to be some bright powder in his palm. It turned out that a layer of invisible pearl powder was applied to Leonwa's face. Then, she spoke calmly. The pearl is gone. He went to pick it. Hearing the sound, Fusuke seemed to understand something. You mean, you just asked him to go pearl hunting because you ran out of pearl powder? Fusuke looked directly into Renua's eyes and asked. Leonwa nodded slightly, but her expression remained unchanged. But the next second, but she rubbed her face against Fusuke's palm again, acting like a cute kitten. Uchiha Fusuke's eyes flashed with helplessness. Why are there always such problem girls around him? Jien Leonwa gave an affirmative answer. 12. Uchiha Fusuke also breathed a sigh of relief. But soon, looking at Leonwa's iceberg face, that could be broken by any bomb, Uchiha had a flash of evil thoughts in his heart. He raised his hand slightly, pinched Leonwa's fair and tender face, and then kneaded it gently. No doubt, it felt even better than he imagined. Hue elasticity, smoothness, delicateness and softness. It's simply hard to put down. Looking at Hyuga Leonwa's iceberg face, that seems to have remained unchanged for 10,000 years, constantly changing into various funny shapes in his hands, Feng Xiao felt a sense of joy in his heart. I'll make you gasp when you talk again, he thought to himself, and then glared at Hyuga Leonwa, viciously. Seeing Fusuke's actions, Leonwa still tilted her head, a trace of doubt flashing in her glazed pupils. It seems that Fusuke's behavior makes her feel a little incomprehensible. Feeling the strange touch on her cheek, Leonwa didn't dislike it. When she saw Fusuke's seemingly happy eyes, the confusion in her eyes gradually faded. Just when Fusuke was ready to say, enough is enough. Suddenly, Renka suddenly took Uchiha Fusuke's other hand and put it on the other side of her face. At that moment, the fierce movements suddenly stopped. Feeling the stagnation of Fang's movements, Leonwa just spoke vaguely. Fusuke, pinch. Hear the sound. Looking at Renua's serious eyes, Fusuke just hesitated for a moment. The next second, rub, rub, rub. Feeling the smooth and soft touch on his fingertips, Fusuke felt extremely happy. At this moment, he finally understood why some people in previous lives liked to squeeze plasticine to relieve stress. Family members, who knows? Because it's really fun. As the top wealthy family in Konoha, the Hyuga clan naturally has an extremely powerful intelligence network within the village. Although the assassination of the third Hokage happened not long ago. But the news has already reached Hyuga Hiyashi's ears. After repeated verification, Hiyashi was sure of one thing. That is, the one who assassinated third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke was a ninja from the Hyuga clan. The moment I got the news, Hiyashi suddenly felt as if the sky was falling and the earth was falling. He never expected it. At this juncture of competition for the Hokage position, something like this could happen. What makes Hyuga Hiyashi even more horrified is, it happened at the same time as this. There was a more serious matter. Nara Shikamaru was assassinated. Shikamaru is not only Konoha's Jonin squad leader, but also one of the Hokage's candidates. His death will undoubtedly have extremely serious consequences. Advertisement. The two incidents happened together, which undoubtedly pointed the finger directly at the Hyuga clan. Hyuga Hiyashi simply couldn't imagine it. If the village and the third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke identified the Hyuga clan as the murderers of Shikamaru and the assassin of the Hokage. How terrifying this would be. Ever since, Hyuga Hiyashi doesn't care about anything else. He hurried towards Hyuga Leonwa's residence. Plan for today. He only hopes that the third generation will give the Hyuga clan a chance to prove their innocence for the sake of Hyuga Lotus. All the time, Hyuga Hiyashi respects his clan sister who is like an iceberg. But the stakes were so high at the moment that Hiyashi couldn't care less. He walked straight into Leonwa's residence without saying hello and went straight to the front hall. He shouted as he walked. Sister clan, Sister Yin. Big things are bad, big things. As he spoke, Hyuga Hiyashi's unfinished words suddenly got stuck in his throat. The extremely anxious expression on his face was frozen instantly. The next second, Hiyashi's expression changed from anxious to confused, and then from confused to numb. Because he saw a picture that made his rationality diminish, as if he was in a dream. He only saw the object of his anxiety and worry, Uchiha Fusuke. At this moment, she was rubbing the pretty face of Sister Bingshan clan, without any scruples. The unscrupulous, evil hands, were rounding and flattening that gorgeous face into various strange shapes. And that big iceberg is enough to freeze penguins to death. At this moment, it was as if he was under an illusion, and he just sat there, letting Fusuke's evil hands do whatever he wanted. And what makes Hyuga Hiyashi feel even more unreal is that he actually saw a hint of nostalgia in Hyuga Leonwa's eyes. This shocked Hyuga Hiyashi. It's like your playing cards will suddenly sing, Jas lightning, one day. Hyuga Hiyashi lowered his head in disbelief and rubbed his eyes. I must be dreaming, must be, he muttered to himself while rubbing his eyes. After a moment, wait for him to raise his head again. However, he discovered that Hyuga Renka and Uchiha Fusuke not far away were sitting upright at this moment. Fusuke even held up the teacup in front of him with a nonchalant expression, as if he was savoring the taste of the tea in the cup. Only Hyuga Renka's little face, which had been rubbed red, was telling Hyuga Hiyashi. Everything he saw just now was real, not a dream. When Hyuga Hiyashi raised his eyes again, he saw a line of sight that was enough to freeze to death a polar bear. He saw Hyuga Leonwa looking at him coldly, an infinite chill spreading from his heart to his limbs. Moment. Cold sweat soaked Hiyashi's back. That. Private Marseille. Snapped. I was the one who was abrupt. At that moment, Hyuga Hiyashi's body froze and he fell to his knees directly, his forehead making a crisp sound with the ground. After he gave the two people a tuxia seat salute, he immediately got up and ran away as if running away. After escaping, ho. Hyuga Hiyashi breathed heavily, his eyes full of fear. If Hyuga Hiyashi lived in modern times, he would probably inevitably take out his mobile phone and post a question on Facebook at this moment. Shocked. What should I do if I find out that my female boss is having an affair with the CEO? Wait online, it's very urgent. I never thought my iceberg boss would be like that. Who knows, family members, the iceberg goddess secretly means to lick dogs. But when I think of Hyuga Renhua's face turned red just now, physics. Hyuga Hiyashi suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart. Sister clan, you seemed quite cute just now. Thinking of this, Hyuga Hiyashi trembled violently, his eyes full of fear. Would normal people fall in love with a piece of Wangwang crushed ice? Hiyashi felt deeply ashamed and frightened by his thoughts. Wait until the intruding Hyuga Hiyashi leaves. Uchiha Fusuke just put down the teacup in his hand. He looked at Leonwa's little red face, a trace of apology flashing in his eyes. It's all because he was so engrossed in G just now that he didn't even notice Hyuga Hiyashi's sudden arrival. Seeing Fusuke's eyes, Leonwa seemed to have some misunderstanding. Fusuke, pinch. She leaned her head forward slightly, tilted her head and spoke slowly. No. Looking at Leonwa's red face, Fusuke immediately waved his hand. The last time Uchiha Fusuke showed this expression was when he was collecting lucky money during the new year in his previous life. Seeing Fang's refusal, Leonwa once again withdrew his head expressionlessly. Seeing Renhua's innocent look, Uchiha Fusuke felt a flash of guilt in his heart. He suppressed the charm in his heart and pondered. After Leonwa's explanation, he has confirmed the general situation. Hyuga, on his side, just sent the ninja out to perform the mission. I just didn't expect that the ninja who was supposed to be on a pearl hunting mission. But suddenly he was assassinated. Fusuke has no doubts about this statement and explanation. Advertisement. First of all, Leonwa doesn't lie. Secondly, the matter of clearing memory is indeed beyond the capabilities of the Hyuga clan. The blank memory of the Hyuga death soldier is obviously abnormal. So there must be someone causing trouble in this. This is also consistent with Fusuke's conjecture. After excluding Hyuga, there are only two suspects in Fusuke's mind. Thinking of this, Fusuke's eyes flashed with a hint of depression. During this period of time when Uchiha was deep in thought. Looking at Uchiha Fusuke who was deep in thought, there was a slight wave in Hyuga's beautiful eyes. It seemed like he remembered something. The ripples in her eyes became calm again, and some were just absolute. The next second, a powerful wave began to boil from Leonwa's eyes. Threads of blue ripples began to pour out from the pure eyes of lotus-glazed color. All of a sudden, boom, terrifying power burst out from Leonwa's body. The antique room instantly became a mess. A trace of pain appeared on Leonwa's face, and veins popped out from the corners of her eyes. This movement also directly disrupted Fusuke's thoughts. Leonwa, seeing Renhua's state, Fusuke was shocked. Without any time to think, he quickly moved forward and held Leonwa's frail and boneless body in his arms. Whoa, the complex ink marks instantly appeared on Fusuke's forehead. Sage mode, perfect condition. The next second, a large amount of Senjutsu chakra began to seep into Renka's body from the part where Fusuke and Renka's skin were in contact. For a while, Leonwa's rage-like power began to slowly subside. Seeing the pain on Leonwa's face, a trace of worry flashed in Uchiha's heart. He understands Leonwa's current situation very well. It can even be said that Leonwa appears in this state. More or less related to him. The reason for this situation is precisely, Tenseigan went berserk. It all started many years ago. If Ayako is Fusuke's childhood sweetheart. Then Renka is the heaven-falling type, beside Fusuke. Then, Fusuke took advantage of the opportunity to become a disciple of Senju Tobirama and took the opportunity to escape from Uchiha's control. After leaving the group, Fusuke joins the ninja squad system created by Second Hokage. Hyuga Renka was Fusuke's teammate during the ninja team. It is worth mentioning that the captain of this problem team is none other than Senju Tobirama himself. In life and death battles one after another, Fusuke gradually established a deep friendship with the eccentric Hyuga Renka. It was the first time of the ninja war, and the two of them had to experience brutal fighting almost every day. Finally one day, Fusuke and Renge are surrounded by hostile ninjas. At that time, Fusuke was not as powerful as he is now. Under heavy siege, Fusuke finally felt exhausted. He was about to suffer heavy losses from the enemy. At this time, Lianhua stepped forward and blocked Fang Ji's attack with her body. It was also this battle. Looking at Lianhua, who was seriously injured and dying. Uchiha Fusuke just opened Mangekyo Sharingan. With Mangekyo's power, Fusuke finally fought his way out. Fortunately, the rescue was timely and Lianhua's life was finally saved. But from then on, Fang Jie began to think of ways to improve Lianhua's combat power, fearing that Lianhua would be in danger again. A few more years passed. Wait until Fusuke officially succeeds Hokage and transplants Senju Hashirama's cells. Later, he officially started the plan to help Lianhua complete her transformation. Just like Sharingan can evolve into Rinnegan. The Byakugan of the Hyuga clan can also advance. The direction of advancement of White Eyes is exactly the legendary Tenseigan. These two high-level pupil techniques were once the pupil techniques of the ancestor of chakra, and both contain the power to destroy the world. The conditions for activating Tenseigan are somewhat similar to Rinnegan. But it is more demanding. Rinnegan's activation. Uchiha is needed to fuse the power of Senju. The activation of Tenseigan requires Hyuga to fuse Otsutsuki chakra. Today's ninja world, there is no other Otsutsuki except the Sage of Six Paths Otsutsuki Hagoromo. But what few people know is this. Sage of Six Paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo actually has two descendants. That is, the two ethnic groups, Senju and Uchiha. Therefore, use reverse thinking. As long as the chakra of Senju and Uchiha are fused, the result is Otsutsuki chakra pseudo. Chapter 61. I asked you to investigate the case, but your mouth became swollen from kissing it. Advertisement. Therefore, after fusing Hashirama cells, rounding, Uchiha Fusuke's chakra is equivalent to Otsutsuki chakra pseudo. As Fusuke injects his own chakra into Renhua's body. This move made Lianhua's White Eyes smoothly transform into Tenseigan pseudo. But it's a pity, perhaps influenced by Fusuke's bootleg Otsutsuki chakra. Renge is unable to exert the full power of Tenseigan pseudo. As long as she operates excessively, it will cause Tenseigan to go berserk. The only way to suppress this rampage, it is to use the same origin chakra, that is, the pirated Otsutsuki chakra of the wind, to calm it down. But no matter what, the awakening of Tenseigan pseudo will definitely bring more advantages than disadvantages to Lianhua. This allowed Lianhua's strength to undergo a qualitative change, becoming a well-deserved cage-level powerhouse in one fell swoop. Right now, I saw Lotus Tenseigan suddenly going berserk. Fang Jie skillfully injected his own chakra into Lianhua's body, trying to help her suppress Tenseigan's rampage. But soon, he discovered a problem. Due to the accumulation of power over the years, Hyuga Lotus's strength has far exceeded what it was back then. This rough method of chakra delivery is based on skin contact alone. The efficiency has long been unable to sustain the wind to suppress Lianhua's rampaging Tenseigan. In an instant, the thoughts in his mind were racing rapidly. Seeing Lianhua's situation becoming more and more critical. Finally, he thought of a way. Thinking of this, Fusuke shifted his eyes to Lianhua's lips, which were more delicate than roses. Human life was at stake, and he couldn't care much. He could only grit his teeth and press his lips to Lian Huahiao's lips. With further contact, the pirated Otsutsuki chakra belonging to Fusuke suddenly poured into Lianhua's body in large quantities. The wind machine controls its own chakra and helps Lianhua quell the Tenseigan's rebellion. After a long time, the Tenseigan uprising gradually subsided. After a long time, the lips parted. Call. Uchiha Fusuke pursed his slightly red and swollen lips and took 2 deep breaths of fresh air. Wait until Fusuke bows his head again. What comes into view is a big iceberg that has already melted into spring water. Although Lianhua still had the same expressionless face as before. But the feeling is completely different. Her fair and pretty cheeks were not only covered with a seductive blush, but the expression on her little face was also a little confused and absent-minded. Even the pair of eyes that were as clean and pure as glass seemed to be scattered and blurred. The most eye-catching thing is her small and cute pink lips. At this moment it looked like a mosquito bite, with suspicious redness and swelling. At first glance, at this time, Lianhua was like a kitten that had taken catnip, silly and cute. Looking at Lianhua, who was a little distracted, Uchiha Fusuke could only take the lead in apologizing. Sorry, Lianhua, if the matter is urgent, I will obey the authority. Fusuke felt guilty and took the initiative to explain. Fusuke's voice is heard. Lianhua's somewhat distracted consciousness gradually recovered, and her blurred eyes regained their former look. She slightly stretched out a small hand and covered Fusuke's red and swollen lips. Lianhua shook her head slightly, a hint of warmth flashed in her eyes that had not yet faded. Do not blame you. Her voice is still as sweet as the clear spring flowing from the top of the snow-capped mountains. Hearing the sound, Fusuke's somewhat guilty mood was relieved. But soon, he realized another problem. Everything was fine, why did Lianhua's Tenseigen suddenly go berserk? Thinking of this, Fusuke felt a little doubt in his heart, and then he asked Lianhua. Lianhua, does your Tenseigen often go berserk? Hearing this, although Lianhua's expression remained unchanged, her body trembled unnaturally. Lianhua did not answer Fang's question, but silently moved her gaze to one side. Seeing this, Fusuke's eyes flashed with a look of deep concern. He tried to read Lianhua's thoughts from her actions. At that moment, he turned his face slightly and tried to look at Lianhua again. As soon as their eyes met, Lianhua once again turned her glazed pupils to one side. Fusuke still didn't know that Lianhua was hiding something from him. Suddenly, he seemed to feel guilty. Lianhua let go of Fusuke, stood up and stood aside, turning away from Fusuke. Seeing this, Yin immediately concluded his conjecture. He began to recall all the details of his encounter with Lianhua up to now. But after thinking about it, he still had no clue. I can only try it out casually. Is it related to Ayako? As soon as these words came out, Lianhua's body trembled again and remained silent. But sometimes, silence is the best answer. Advertisement. Seeing this, Fusuke knew that he was lucky and got him right. So he approached Lianhua with a serious face, held Lianhua's shoulders with both hands, and turned her body around. He looked directly at Lianhua again and asked, "What is going on?" Seeing this situation, Hyuga Lianhua finally had nowhere to hide. From her clear eyes, Fusuke could see the tangle in her heart. He stopped talking. He just kept putting pressure on Lianhua with his silence. Finally, Lianhua couldn't hold it any longer. I don't want to lie to Fusuke. She lowered her head as if a little frustrated, and said in a slightly low voice. This time, Lianhua seemed to have said everything, but also seemed to have said nothing. I see. Seeing this, Fusuke seemed to have figured something out, and he loosened his hand on Lianhua's shoulder. Subsequently, Fusuke raised his hand, smiled, then put his hand on Lianhua's little head and rubbed it. As Uchiha Fusuke has long known, Hyuga Renka will not lie to him, nor will he lie. Next, he still has things to do. Then, he stopped staying and turned around to leave. Whoosh. Then, with the activation of Flying Thunder God, Uchiha Fusuke's figure disappeared into the room. Wait until Fusuke leaves. Only then did Hyuga Lianhua let go of her little hand that had turned white. She stretched out her hand towards the blank space, as if she wanted to retain something. But in the end, she put down her arms weakly. At this time, the first ray of rising sun outside the window penetrated the glass and caught her eyes. It turned out to be a ridiculous night. It was already bright outside the window at this moment. Lianhua stood there blankly, not knowing what she was thinking. It wasn't until a long time later that she pursed her red and swollen lips and looked blankly at the morning light pouring in from the window. After a night of investigation, Uchiha Fusuke probably already knows who the real culprit behind all this is. But the sky was already bright. He decided to make some arrangements during the day and settle everything tonight. At the moment, Fusuke chose to return to Hokage's office first. And in this office, Namikaze Minato and Hitaki Tsukumo have also been waiting for a long time. Since what happened last night, Tsukumo led Anbu to launch an investigation, and at the same time strengthened vigilance to avoid further victims. Minato is responsible for sitting in the Hokage office, waiting for the results of Fusuke's investigation and being ready to deal with possible situations at any time. Looking at Uchiha Fusuke, who suddenly appeared, both of them looked stunned. Then, a strange look flashed in Minato's eyes. Nothing else. Mainly because Uchiha Fusuke's red and swollen lips were so eye-catching that it was hard for him not to notice. As a married person, Minato certainly knows what this means. I asked you to investigate the case, why did your mouth become swollen from kissing me? If it weren't for Uchiha Fusuke standing in front of him, he might have been unable to help asking. But out of trust in Fusuke, he still suppressed his inner desire to complain and ask questions. Unlike Minato's silence, Fusuke-sama, how is the situation? Hitaki Tsukumo, who was standing aside, immediately stepped forward to ask. I have identified the murderer. Tsukumo, take Anbu with you and disperse all the residents near the Uchiha tribe. Try to be as subtle as possible in your movements and don't alert others. After hearing Fusuke's order, Hitaki Tsukumo's face showed a trace of solemnity. Uchiha Fusuke just nodded slightly and ordered with a somewhat sad expression. Yes. Hearing this, Hitaki Tsukumo immediately responded with a serious face. After hearing Fusuke's words, Minato's eyes flashed with solemnity. Is it really Uchiha? Minato lamented inwardly, secretly thinking that he was right to leave the matter to Fusuke yesterday. Just as Tsukumo was about to go carry out Fusuke's order. Suddenly, he also noticed something strange on Fusuke's lips. Fusuke-sama, what's wrong with your lips? Tsukumo asked with subconscious concern. Although Tsukumo has been married for many years and has given birth to children long ago. But after all, he is middle-aged and has passed the passionate love stage in his youth. And Uchiha Fusuke was someone he respected extremely, so Tsukumo didn't even think about it in this direction. Ahem. Seeing this, Minato on the side immediately coughed slightly in embarrassment and tried to remind Tsukumo. Hitaki Tsukumo turned his head and glanced at Minato in confusion. Looking at Minato's haggard face, Hitaki Tsukumo could only think that it was the sequelae of Minato being influenced by the other reincarnation technique. Seeing that Hitaki Tsukumo was still dumbfounded, without any understanding, Minato could only cover his head and turn his eyes helplessly. The corners of Uchiha Fusuke's eyes twitched slightly. Advertisement. Ha ha, I was accidentally bitten by a mosquito yesterday. He forced a smile and scratched the back of his head unnaturally. And it's also a female mosquito, with white skin, beautiful appearance, long legs, thin waist, and a big cushion. Uchiha Fusuke secretly added in his heart. Charged. I see, Master Fusuke, thank you for your hard work. Hitaki Tsukumo nodded seriously, believing Fusuke's explanation. Serve the village. It should, Uchiha Fusuke said somewhat sarcastically. Hearing this, Tsukumo didn't stay too long and turned around to carry out the task assigned by Fusuke. Outside the door, walking on the street, Tsukumo was suddenly stunned when he looked at the ice edges on the eaves. That's not right. Where do mosquitoes come from in winter? Not to mention the stupid Hitaki Tsukumo here. In the Hokage's office. After Hitaki Tsukumo left, only Fusuke and Minato were left in the Hokage office. Fusuke and Minato looked at each other and saw the strange color in each other's eyes. Namikaze Minato, who had endured it for a long time, could no longer bear it now. Fusuke-sama, this mosquito can survive in such a cold weather. I guess what you encountered should be some kind of mutant mosquito. I think this mosquito should have the potential to become a summoning beast. Minato spoke first, with a serious look on his face, but he couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. You kid, you're not done yet, are you? Hearing this, Fusuke's old face turned red, and there were a few more characters on his forehead. Seeing that Fusuke seemed to be getting angry, Minato immediately stopped teasing him. Are you really going to do this? After hesitating for a while, he asked Fusuke again with a serious face. Call. You don't have to worry so much. I don't think it's as bad as you think. I asked Tsukumo to do this just in case. Fusuke exhaled softly and said with a smile, calming Minato's mood. Even if the worst does come to pass. At this point, I have to do this. This is the promise I made to Master back then. As he said this, Fusuke's eyes flashed with solemnity. Yes, I worry too much. As long as you are here, nothing will happen to the Uchiha clan. Hearing Fusuke mention his master, Minato also said with some emotion. As the words fell, the atmosphere of silence appeared again between the master and the disciple. Finally, Fusuke stood up slowly and spoke to Minato in a calm tone. Now, I have to confirm one last thing. And the most important thing. Hearing this, Minato glanced at Fusuke with a slightly worried look. Jiao. Minato knew that Fusuke's heart was not as peaceful as he appeared on the surface. Because of this kind of thing. It's not just a village thing, but also Fusuke's family thing. Minato didn't say anything more, he just nodded silently towards Fusuke. Whoosh! With the twinkle of flying thunder god. Fusuke's figure disappeared from the spot. Looking at the place where Fusuke disappeared, a hint of complexity flashed in Minato's eyes. Feeling that his body was exhausted, he could only smile bitterly. Next, the village can only rely on the master. Uchiha clan place, clan chief's office. Ayako sat leisurely in the courtyard, quietly looking at the scenery in the courtyard, her eyes flashing and she didn't know what she was thinking. After a moment, she seemed to feel something and turned her head slightly to look behind her. The person she had longed for appeared in front of her. Since that night, 2 more nights have passed. Ayako's heart never stops thinking about Uchiha Fusuke. Welcome back. At that moment, Ayako smiled brightly at Fusuke, looking like a newlywed wife. Looking at Ayako's beautiful smile, Fusuke felt a little complicated in his heart. He just nodded slightly towards Ayako, then slowly approached Ayako and sat down next to her. This time, he took the initiative to bring the charming Ayako into the arms of Prince Y. Feeling Fusuke's movements, Ayako's charming eyes flashed with surprise. Then, she obediently leaned into Fusuke's arms, closed her eyes in contentment and quietly felt her lover's body temperature. Suddenly, sniff, jing. Ayako's cute nose suddenly wrinkled. Then, she closed her eyes and spoke softly. It smells like little lotus flowers. Hear the sound. Fusuke's body stiffened suddenly, and his eyes flickered humbly. The words that came to his lips were swallowed back by him. Chapter 62, The Truth of the Murder, the Eve of the Night of Genocide. Advertisement. By the way, after being teased by Minato, Fusuke had used yang release to eliminate the redness and swelling on his lips. But what Fusuke didn't expect was that a woman's sense of smell in love would be as good as that of a hunting dog. It wasn't until after a long silence that he asked bravely. You have to give me an explanation for Xiaolu's death. Fusuke's voice is heard. Puhei. Ayako suddenly laughed out loud. She took the initiative to turn around and glanced at Fusuke with a pair of charming eyes full of smiles. How? So it was my fault that you suspected Nara Shidao. Seeing Ayako's unhappy expression, Fusuke's originally anxious heart gradually calmed down. What he was most worried about was that Ayako got involved in this matter. Seeing Ayako's expression now, he finally felt relieved. Based on his understanding of Ayako, Ryuko is really the person behind everything. It was impossible for her to be so indifferent if he pointed it out to her face. In fact, it was already after the incident. Fusuke has already identified the murderer among several people. Among them, the first one is Hyuga. After verification, the suspicion has now been officially eliminated. The second one is Uchiha's side. The reason is simple. Although Nara Shikamaki's strength has not reached Kage level, he is one of the strongest among elite Jonin. He can kill Nara Shikamaki easily and calmly. It can only mean that the person who did it either has the strength to crush Shikado and is a strong man with Kage level strength. Or at least they dispatched elites who were almost as strong as Nara Shikami but were several times more powerful. However, after on-site inspection, the injuries on Ludao's body were found. There are various traces, and it's not like Kage-level experts doing it. Therefore, Minato concluded that, at least 5 elite Jonin, were encircling and killing them at the same time. In addition, the scene of Nara Shikamaki's death was near the Hokage building, which means that only people in the village were killed. Combining this information, it is possible to attack and kill Nara Shikamachi. There are only 2 Konoha giants, Hyuga, and Uchiha. Because he can mobilize 5 elite Jonin at once, such a feat is definitely not something that ordinary young ninjas can do. Take Yuan Fei Asuma as an example, the strength of elite Jonin is probably similar to that of the 12 guardian ninja warriors. And there is the most crucial point. That was the message Nara left behind before his death, the word, household. At first glance, it seems that what Nara Shikamaki wants to say is that the person who killed him was a person with the character, house, in his name. We can speculate in this direction. In the huge Konoha, there are too many people with the word, house, in their names. If you follow this 330 direction to find the murderer, it will undoubtedly be equivalent to finding a needle in a haystack. With Nara's intelligence, how could he leave such invalid information at a critical moment? What he really wanted to write. In fact, it is the word, fan, for Tuanfan. Uchiha Fusuke has already thought of this the moment he saw the character, house. Only this word can have the effect of pointing out the real murderer. In the entire ninja world, when people mention Uchiha, the first thing that people think of is naturally the Uchiha clan. Because the crest of the Uchiha clan is exactly the Uchiha fan. Pity. At the last moment of his life, Nara Shikamaki's remaining physical strength could not support him to finish writing this word. So a half-written household was left. Otherwise, there would be no need for Fusuke to go to such trouble and pay the tragic price of red and swollen lips. Finally, add the Hyuga death soldier, whose memory was erased. Fusuke has long placed the biggest suspicion on the Uchiha family. And among the Uchiha clan, the most suspicious, in addition to the patriarch, Uchiha Ayako, there is also Uchiha Fugaku who controls the security department. Because only 2 people in the tribe have Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Fugaku's Mangekyo is a secret to others. In Fusuke's eyes, it's certainly not a secret. Well, once Ayako's suspicion is eliminated, he manipulated the Hyuga death soldier to assassinate Fusuke and erase his memory. It can only be Uchiha Fugaku. Connect the 2 events, the assassination of the Hokage, and the tragic death of Shikamaki. It is not difficult to imagine that the death of Nara Shikamaki was caused by Uchiha Fugaku. Why don't you stop Uchiha Fugaku? Fusuke looked directly into Ayako's charming eyes, which were still filled with a hint of anger, and asked with a frown. How do I stop it? She is just a weak woman. She is still a little woman whose husband is no longer around, and she is quiet and quiet. As she said this, a trace of resentment and grievance flashed across Ayako's eyes, and her red mouth pursed. ... Fusuke was speechless. He really couldn't believe what Ayako said. With Ayako's character and resourcefulness, he would never believe that she was a student who would suffer so easily. You are the patriarch. How could it not be stopped? Looking at Ayako who was pretending to be aggrieved, he had no choice but to speak. You're still Hokage. I haven't seen you take charge of the village. BCFD, I am a small clan leader, and I have been ignored for a long time. Ayako said in a charming voice again, the grievance in her eyes gradually condensed into a substantial mist. Hearing this, Fusuke was finally speechless. Advertisement. Cry. You have wronged others and don't tell them. Even stealing with Xiao Lianhua. He came back to attack me. The mist in Ayako's charming eyes finally began to overflow like raindrops in June. She pouted and scolded Fusuke, speaking aggrievedly. Seeing Ayako's expression, Feng Jie felt a trace of unbearability flashing through his heart. It was as if he had really done something heinous. He hurriedly tried to wipe away the tears from the corners of Ayako's eyes. Seeing Fusuke's panicked movements, a hint of subtle cunning flashed through Ayako's eyes. I want a kiss. At that moment, Ayako immediately raised her head and pretended to be angry and took the initiative to kiss Feng. Seeing this, how could Fusuke not know that he had been deceived by Ayako's acting skills? Hard. The fist is hard. Boom. He directly raised his fist and hit Ayako on the head. Well, quote exclamation mark quote. Ayako immediately covered her head and screamed in pain. Even though Uchiha Fusuke has determined that Nara Shikamaki's death has nothing to do with Uchiha Ayako. But this does not mean that there are no other, troublesome things, in Ayako. You're hiding something from me. What on earth is going on? Fusuke narrowed his eyes and spoke to the tearful Ayako with a very firm tone. Seeing Fusuke's eyes, Ayako stopped pretending to be pitiful and tearful, and returned to her charming look. She stepped forward slowly, gently hugged Fusuke's strong back, and then rested her little head on Fangji's chest. She quietly listened to Fusuke's heartbeat and showed a satisfied smile. Fool, everyone has their own secrets. Don't you also hide a lot of things from me? But no matter what, I will never hurt you or anyone you care about. Ayako said calmly, then raised her head and looked into Fusuke's eyes. Two pairs of equally scarlet pupils stared directly at each other. People say that eyes don't deceive. In Ayako's eyes, Fusuke saw only tenderness and a clear conscience. Quote. Seeing this, Feng Jie breathed out a heavy breath, feeling a little discouraged. He already knew it. Ayako won't be as easy to deal with as Renka. That's all, let her be. Wait until things here in Konoha are over. When Suna inherits the Hokage, I will go back to live in seclusion. Fusuke thought secretly in his heart, and the depressed look in his eyes gradually calmed down. Compared to continuing to stay in Konoha, scheming with the eternal girl in front of him who lusted after his body every day. How could he return to the sea of flowers in the world and live in seclusion every day for peace and quiet? Looking at Fusuke's calm eyes again, Ayako's charming eyes flashed with a hint of sadness, and her heart felt a little heavy. But soon, a bright smile appeared on her pretty face again, as if the heaviness just now did not exist. Ayako, it's not too late. You should organize and arrange for the innocent tribesmen to take refuge as soon as possible. Try to be as discreet as possible. Tonight, something big will happen in our clan. Fusuke said to Ayako in a serious tone. Hearing this, the smile on Uchiha Ayako's face did not change, she just nodded lightly. Rest assured, people know it, husband. Then, Ayako suddenly smiled charmingly. She deliberately lengthened the final syllable and gave Fusuke an ambiguous name. Whoosh. Hearing the sound, Fusuke suddenly trembled, covered his face, activated Flying Thunder God and fled. Seeing this, Ayako's eyes showed a smile. Ah, things have finally come to this. It's my turn to go out and do some work. She sighed leisurely, then got up and walked towards the door. Not only Hyuga Lotus. In fact, Uchiha Ayako has not left her home for a long time. But it's different from Hyuga's simple, doesn't want to go out. Uchiha Ayako closed herself off and ignored things outside the window, but there was a deeper reason. 005. Finally, Ayako walked to the courtyard door, opened it and walked out. Afterwards, she just stood quietly in front of the door for a moment, and dozens of fully armed Uchiha ninjas appeared in front of Ayako. The leader was the Anbu man, who had been summoned by Ayako alone before. Master Patriarch, XN. All the Uchiha ninjas said in unison, full of respect. Obviously, Ayako's situation is not like what she said, she is just a little patriarch, who has been emptied out. She had been preparing for this moment for a long time. I'll give you 1 day. Transfer all irrelevant people in the clan area. Be quiet, don't you need me to teach you how to do it? Ayako narrowed her eyes, chuckled and ordered to the Uchiha ninjas in front of her. Quote. Quote. Advertisement. Please also ask the patriarch to make it clear. Uchiha. A trace of hesitation flashed in the ninja's eyes, and he asked in confusion. Idiot, you can cheat if you can, but you can't cheat if you can't. Using illusions of course. Ayako scolded mercilessly, the cold light in her eyes flashed away. Yes, the Uchiha ninja's eyes trembled when he was scolded, and he immediately lowered his head and responded. You, stay. After finishing speaking, Ayako pointed to the Anbu man, who was still wearing a mask at the front and said. Hearing this, everyone except Anbu was still half kneeling on the ground. The rest of the Uchiha ninjas scattered one after another. How did things go? After everyone left and there was no one around, Ayako spoke calmly again. It's done. I got the task of delivering the invitation. Anbu male responded in a calm voice, with a hint of depression in his words. Very good. Uchiha's transformation begins today. For the village, and for Uchiha. I thought you'd know how to do that. Ayako spoke to the Anbu man, in front of her in a serious tone, with a twinkle in her charming eyes. Quote. Quote. Anbu man said deeply, his tone was dull but full of seriousness. Go ahead. The third generation is waiting for you. Ayako nodded with satisfaction and gave the final order to Anbu man. Then, the Anbu man nodded and stood up, disappearing from the place with a speed that could be called a ghost. After a while, among the Uchiha tribe, his third uncle, why are you going? Me, my son brought a message, asking me to go to the village and pick up something. What about you? Oh, my niece got married suddenly and invited me to a dinner party. Two old Uchiha men, about 50 years old, met at the gate of the clan and chatted with each other. That's not his second aunt, why are you going? Suddenly, an old man waved to the old woman who suddenly appeared in the distance and asked. Why am I going here? Anyway, I just want to go to the village. Hearing the sound, a trace of confusion flashed in the old woman's eyes, and soon she replied to Lao Deng in a confused tone. Then he took another step to leave the Uchiha tribe. Similar scenes continue to occur throughout the Uchiha tribe. The Uchiha tribe, among the countless tribes, had their turn turned to Omi for various reasons. There were still some who refused to leave because they were deceived by the illusion and passively went to the village. Hours ago. Ninja World, unknown location. Quack. A crow with scarlet eyes circled twice in the air, and then flew into a hidden cave. In the cave, Uchiha Obito, who was wearing a whirlpool mask, saw the flying crow, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Then, he grabbed the crow in front of him and took off the letter carried on the crow's paw. Obito frowned and opened his eyes to see the handwriting on the letter clearly. But helplessly, his blurred vision forced him to hold the letter in front of his eyes to see clearly. So that's what it is. After reading the contents of the letter, Obito's eyes flashed with deep thought. At the moment, Obito's condition doesn't look good. Even visible weakness. In his eye sockets, the color of the kamui was almost gray. It means that his blindness is just around the corner. Everything stemmed from his rash attack on Konoha 3 days ago. In the battle with Third Hokage Uchiha Fusuke, he was almost killed by a sword. Although Obito narrowly escaped with his life. But his Sharingan was severely overdrawn due to overuse. This overdraft is almost irreversible. Even if Obito transplanted Hashirama cells, Kamui's damage could not be restored. There is only one way Obito can restore his eyes. This is also the method documented in the Legacy of Uchiha Madara. That is, to seize the power of the eyes from the Sharingan of the same race, in order to restore the lost origin of oneself. At the same time, in Madara's Legacy, there are also several pairs of 3 Magatama. It is these pairs of eyes that allow Obito's Kamui to be barely usable again. Compared to Obito, fire and dark situations are actually easier to handle. Just broken limbs. This kind of injury could not be easier to treat for Obito, who has the White Zetsu technology. All you need to do is cut off the White Zetsu's limbs and reattach them to the bodies of flame and darkness. Obito's own body is actually assembled in this way. 3 days later, fire and darkness have once again returned to full swing. Looking at the contents of the letter, Obito felt a flash of struggle in his heart. He recalled a few days ago again. The overwhelming power displayed by Uchiha Fusuke. When he thought of this, the hairs on Obito's body stood on end. Chapter 63. There is a sky outside the sky, who can say that he is invincible? Who dares to say that he is undefeated? Advertisement. Now Uchiha Obito felt a palpitation in his heart when he thought of being hostile to Fang. But helpless. There are some things that he still has to face. That monster. Thinking of Fusuke's terrifying, smiling face at that time, Obito gritted his teeth with fear. If the content in the letter is true, it might be an opportunity. A bunch of idiots, how dare they play such a trick with that monster Uchiha Fusuke here? It doesn't matter, this is just my chance to restore my eye power. Obito sneered and whispered, a hint of ferocity flashing in his eyes. It would be good to weaken Konoha and cause some trouble for that monster. Obito thought silently in his heart, and felt a sense of powerlessness on his face. At the moment, what he can do is only to this extent. He wrote a bright red word on the letter in his hand, yes. At that moment, Obito grabbed the crow, stuffed the letter back again, and let the crow fly. A dark crow circled and swooped down from the sky. He fell straight into the mansion of the great elder Uchiha. Uchiha Kagami walked out of the house quickly and took the secret letter he had written and hung from the crow's feet. After opening it and reading it, I saw the eye-catching word, kan, on the letter. Uchiha Kagami couldn't help but feel ecstatic immediately. Haha, great, he agreed to my request. Will help us deal with Uchiha Fusuke. Kagami laughed and said to Uchiha Fugaku beside him. Great elder, do we really want to cooperate with that guy who hides his head and shows his tail? I don't believe that such a person can be a dignified ninja Shura. Uchiha Fugaku said hesitantly. What do you know? This contact information was left behind when Madara-sama left. And the other party does possess Mangekyo Sharingan, undoubtedly. Even if he is not the Shura of the ninja world, Uchiha Madara himself, he is definitely a very powerful fighter. Unexpectedly, after hearing Fugaku's words, Jing was convinced of his identity. Turn out to be, when Uchiha Madara left Konoha, she left a little-known contact information among the Uchiha clan. Originally, only the clan leaders of each generation were qualified to know this method of contact. But by chance, this contact information was obtained by Uchiha Kagami. Obviously, at this time, Uchiha Kagami has secretly contacted the other party and met with the other party. The night Nine Tails was in turmoil. Uchiha Kagami also learned from Madara that Konoha would be invaded and the Nine Tails turmoil broke out. Because of this, he arranged for Fugaku to prepare and plan in advance. Call. That's it. But can he really handle Fusuke-sama? Despite Uchiha Kagami's repeated assurances, Fugaku still felt a little uneasy and had doubts about the strength of Madara. Of course, the two of them didn't know. This, Uchiha Madara, was psychologically traumatized by Fusuke during the turbulent night of Nine Tails. GG. So, after hearing Fugaku's words, Uchiha Kagami just sneered twice. No, he doesn't need to be able to defeat Uchiha Fusuke at all. Contacting him was just a precaution. In case things are exposed by then. Let him step in and hold Sister Uchiha until our plan is completed. Everything will be settled, Uchiha Kagami said nonchalantly, a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. He is quite sober, and is not so stupid as to hope that Uchiha Madara can defeat Fusuke. Hearing this, Fugaku still had a trace of doubt and hesitation in his eyes. After all, until this moment, he still didn't know why Uchiha Kagami was so confident from beginning to end. It was as if the plan he mentioned was bound to succeed. It seems that he saw Fugaku's hesitation. In order to boost Fugaku's morale, Uchiha Kagami no longer hides it. He revealed the most crucial part of his plan. This is also why he is so confident. Fugaku, you don't know Shisui's power. So it's normal to feel doubtful, and I don't blame you for that. Uchiha Kagami looked at Fugaku with some pride and said, seeming to feel pity for Fugaku's poor imagination. Also the owner of Mangekyo Sharingan. Fugaku guessed that the ability mentioned by Uchiha Kagami should refer to Mangekyo's unique ability. But no matter how hard he racked his brains, he couldn't figure out what Uchiha Shisui's Mangekyo ability was. What exactly are distinguished heavenly gods? Uchiha Fugaku frowned. He stopped thinking about it and simply asked directly. Distinguished heavenly gods, by Shisui. The power is the ability to permanently change one's thinking and memory. Make all this person's actions go according to your ideas. Uchiha Kagami said with an enthusiastic expression. The three Magatama in his eyes rotated slightly unconsciously due to excitement. What? Advertisement? Uchiha Fugaku was shocked, with a look of horror on his face. He never expected that such pervert abilities existed in this world. Doesn't this mean, once one is hit by distinguished heavenly gods, no matter how powerful and noble the person is, he will become the puppet of the caster forever? Gia, I have asked Shisui to bring the invitation to invite Namikaze Minato and Hitaki Tsukumo to the banquet. Tell them I got a clue to the real killer of Nara Shikamaru. I expect they will definitely come when the time comes. As soon as these two guys come, I'll let Shisui use distinguished heavenly gods to control them directly. Uchiha Kagami's voice was full of pride, and he was very satisfied with his flawless plan. That's when, among the 6 Hokage candidates, Nara Shikamaru has been killed by us. Jiraiya is nothing to worry about. Hitaki Tsukumo will be controlled by the distinguished heavenly gods and become a tool to remove obstacles after you succeed Hokage. Uchiha Kagami continued to talk, and every time he said the name of a Hokage candidate, the arrogance in his eyes became stronger. Hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku also had a flash of enlightenment in his eyes. There was no need for Uchiha Kagami to continue, he answered directly. Hyuga's side. Because of the plan you planned before to divert trouble to the east. Let me control a Hyuga ninja who was out on a mission to assassinate Lord Fang. So Hyuga is extremely suspicious of assassinating Hokage and killing Nara Shikamaru. In this case, Hyuga Hiyashi has no chance to compete with me. Then, he continued to follow Uchiha Kagami's words with great excitement. Good. I'm afraid that Guy Fusuke is still busy investigating Nara Shikamaru's death. So he doesn't care about us at all. Hearing the sound, Uchiha Kagami spoke in time, with a trace of disdain flashing in his eyes. I have already determined that Senju's little girl will never come back in the short term. The 4th generation will turn to your side because they are controlled by the distinguished heavenly gods. With a little manipulation, you can secure your position as Hokage before Tsunade returns to the village. Uchiha Kagami held his head high and continued with a contented tone. Listen to Uchiha Kagami's entire plan. Fugaku was in shock for a moment. In his opinion, Uchiha Kagami's resourcefulness can indeed be called the genius of the world. To be able to become the secretary minister, Uchiha Fugaku is certainly no idiot. What if afterward, Master Fang realizes something is wrong and makes a liquidation? He was keenly aware of the only flaw in Uchiha Kagami's plan. In response, Uchiha Kagami just looked at Fugaku in front of him, showing a teachable expression. Not bad, I can think of this level. Fugaku, I recognize your wisdom. As expected of my favorite Hokage candidate, Uchiha Kagami once again acted unconcerned and had everything in mind and continued. I heard that in a powerful ancient country, I once called 2 extremely wise people, Wolong and Fengxiao. Fugaku, with your wisdom, you are worthy of the title of Phoenix. Uchiha Kagami has a masterly look on his face. He used the title he saw in a certain storytelling novel to praise Fugaku. No doubt, since he compared Uchiha Fugaku to a phoenix chick, then crouching dragon naturally refers to himself. You are overly complimentary, Fugaku replied excitedly. In his opinion, being praised by such a smart Uchiha Kagami is a great honor. Moreover, the title Feng Shu sounds very tall and noble, which is also very appealing to him. Rest assured, I've already taken care of your worries. Even if Uchiha Fusuke discovers something is wrong afterward, it will be too late to settle the score later. Because I hold a handle in his hand. Uchiha Kagami, who compares himself to Wolong, still said with a proud face, not taking Fugaku's worries to heart at all. Unless Uchiha Fusuke wants to be ruined. Otherwise, he will never dare to disobey me when the time comes. I can only choose to hold my nose and admit it. Wolong said with a ferocious expression. A trace of morbid pleasure flashed in Uchiha Kagami's eyes at the thought that he was going to trample his lifelong enemy under his feet. I heard that Uchiha Kagami has been prepared for it. Only then did Fugaku completely put his heart into his stomach, and also imitated the crouching dragon look. He began to imagine that he would serve as Hokage, face the admiration of thousands of people, and reach the peak of his life. DJ. It would be great if I could just use distinguished heavenly gods to control that guy Fusuke. But that guy also owns Mangekyo. Shisui's ability may be rejected and lose its intended effect. Just in case, it's safer to use your abilities on 4th generation and Hitaki Tsukumo. Please give me flowers. Uchiha Kagami sighed with regret. Hearing this, Fugaku's admiration for Uchiha Kagami also reached its peak. He didn't expect that Uchiha Kagami was not only so smart in stopping ghost plots, but also as stable as an old dog. Advertisement. Looking at Fugaku's eyes full of reverence, Uchiha Kagami couldn't help but feel somewhat flamboyant. Count the time. Shisui should have already sent the invitation to 4th generation and Hitaki Tsukumo. Uchiha Kagami turned his head and looked out the window, his eyes full of expectation. At the same time, in the Hokage's office, just as Uchiha Kagami envisioned, a thin ninja wearing an Anbu mask was kneeling on the ground. He was holding a dark red invitation in his hand. This person is none other than the contemporary, Uchiha's number 1 genius, Uchiha Shisui. As a member of the Uchiha tribe, Shisui is an extremely rare person who chooses to join Anbu. And on the opposite side of Shisui, Fusuke and Minato were sitting separately, listening quietly to what Shisui was saying. That's the way it is. After saying that, Shisui raised his head sharply. A pair of scarlet four-cornered windmills caught Fusuke and Minato's eyes. Looking at the scarlet four-cornered pinwheels in Uchiha Shisui's eyes, a flash of horror flashed in Namikaze Minato's heart. Sure enough, there are people outside the world, and there is a sky outside the sky. There are too many powerful abilities in the ninja world. But the next second, Minato said with complicated eyes, a look of relief on his face, and he didn't look like he was being controlled. Next to Minato, Fusuke, who had known the ability of distinguished heavenly gods early on, still had a calm expression and was not shocked by this. 0. In the office, seeing Uchiha Fusuke's indifferent expression, Shisui was shocked. Since he opened Mangekyo Sharingan and awakened the ability of distinguished heavenly gods, all ninjas who knew his abilities were filled with horror. Whether it's Uchiha Kagami, Uchiha Ayako, or Namikaze Minato in front of me, they all expressed admiration and emotion for Shisui's ability. Only Uchiha Fusuke's expression remained calm. It seems that distinguished heavenly gods is no different from shadow clone in his mind. As expected of you, Fusuke-sama. A true pride and legend of Uchiha. Shisui secretly compared it in his mind and exclaimed secretly. The reason why such a situation arises starts some time ago. Some time ago, after Fusuke said goodbye to Ayako, he returned to the Hokage office and informed Minato of the general situation. Subsequently, Fusuke began to arrange the evening's actions with Minato. At this time, tuk-tuk, there was a knock on the Hokage's office door. An Anbu ninja came to report. 3rd generation Sama, 4th generation Sama. Raven, Shisui's Anbu code name, said that he came to visit on behalf of the Uchiha clan. W. Report to Hokage on important and urgent matters. Hearing the sound, Minato glanced hesitantly at Fusuke beside him, silently asking for Fusuke's opinion. Because I already know everything. So Minato understands, the main factor behind everything is Uchiha Kagami. And Shisui is Uchiha Kagami's grandson. I am afraid that the purpose of coming to visit suddenly at this time is not simple. No problem. Let him in. In response to Shisui's sudden arrival, Funge just nodded lightly with a calm look on his face. But what Minato didn't notice was that there was a terrifying coldness in Fusuke's eyes. Others don't know, but he knew everything about Uchiha Shisui's distinguished heavenly gods. Under the inertial thinking, let alone Minato. At this time, even Fusuke believed that Uchiha Shisui came this time to do something with distinguished heavenly gods. The reason why Fusuke dared to meet Shisui was also very simple. Illusion is not an invincible ability, and distinguished heavenly gods is even less likely to be so-called invincible. The ninja world is so big that even Uchiha Fusuke dare not call himself the so-called invincible. Except him. Who dares to claim to be invincible? Who dares to claim to be invincible? If Uchiha Shisui dares to overestimate his own capabilities, he will naturally let Shisui know what, there is heaven outside the sky, and there are people outside the world. Soon, Uchiha Shisui wearing a raven mask came to Hokage's office. Although Shisui still wears a mask, Fusuke does not call him by his code name, but calls him by his first name. Uchiha Shisui, come here at this time, what do you want? Obviously, Fusuke didn't want to continue playing fancy things with Uchiha's group. He had even made up his mind. As long as Shisui dares to act rashly, he will take it down directly. It can be regarded as a preemptive strike to cut off one of the opponent's members, Admiral. After hearing Fusuke's words, Shui also took off the raven mask on his face. By now, he also knew that it would be useless to say anything else. Chapter 64, You better be careful when walking at night. Advertisement. While Uchiha Fusuke still has patience with him, being direct and honest is the way to go. At this moment, Shisui looked at Uchiha Fusuke with a determined expression, a pair of red eyes full of determination. Fusuke looked at Shisui without giving in. The atmosphere in Hokage's office fell directly into dead silence. Just as Fusuke was getting ready to deal with the distinguished heavenly gods that Shisui was about to release. Suddenly, thump, Uchiha Shisui knelt down on his knees and shouted loudly. Uchiha Shisui. Report Uchiha Kagami, Uchiha Fugaku and others for killing squad leader Jonin and assassinating Hokage. And the crime of intending to commit treason. As soon as these words came out, Fusuke was shocked and froze on the spot. Beside him, Minato's expression was even more exaggerated. He looked at the kneeling Uchiha Shisui with absent-minded eyes, and squeezed out a messy noise from his throat. Even though Fusuke and Minato were completely messed up in the wind. But in Uchiha Shisui's opinion, this behavior of the two people was due to their distrust of him, which led to doubts. Shisui began to explain anxiously again. Next, he is like pouring beans out of a bamboo tube. Uchiha Kagami's plan was directly revealed in front of the two of them. Ignoring the expressions on Fusuke and Minato's faces that became increasingly strange as they listened. While listening to Shisui's story, the two of them glanced at each other in unison, and each saw the confusion in the other's eyes. From Shisui's mouth, Fusuke also learned the specific truth and details of his assassination. It was Uchiha Fugaku who took action. Attacked the Hyuga ninja who was out, pearl hunting. Fugaku then used Mangekyo Sharingan to erase his memory. Taking control of this Hyuga ninja, he assassinated Fusuke. That is to say, that day Uchiha Fugaku was near Yuhi Hong's house. As for the death of Narashikami, then, 853, are the elite ninjas sent by Uchiha Kagami to besiege and kill Narashikamaiki. Shisui told everything he knew in one breath. These are basically no different from Fusuke's investigative speculations. But with Uchiha Shisui, turning the dark side into the light, as a witness. This can be considered as evidence that all of this can be verified. After exposing the crimes of Uchiha Kagami and Fugaku. Next, Shisui also announced Uchiha Kagami's next action plan to Fusuke. Third generation Sama. This is the invitation Uchiha Kagami asked me to deliver to fourth generation Meiwa Tsukumo-sama. The purpose is to use this to trick the two adults into going to the Uchiha clan land. Then use my distinguished heavenly gods to control the two adults. Shisui said as he raised his head, revealing his Mangekyo Sharingan. Seeing this, Minato was shocked again. He looked at Shisui's young face and couldn't help but be amazed by it. Of course he knows what a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan represents. This means that the water in front of him has cage level strength at a young age. This kind of talent, compared to his past, is not even a complete victory, but is even worse. As this Uchiha, as expected of the most powerful family in the ninja world, there are indeed many talented people. Minato sighed secretly in his heart. Shisui glanced at Namikaze Minato in front of him calmly. After seeing the exclamation in the other person's eyes, Shisui couldn't help but feel a little confident in his heart. Obviously, he also has absolute confidence in his own potential and talent. Let me ask, a 12 or 13-year-old, cage level, strong man. Even looking at the entire ninja world, he can definitely be called the genius among geniuses. Thinking of this, Shui couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his heart. But when he turned to look at Uchiha Fusuke, he only saw a pair of calm three Magatama. In front of these calm eyes, Uchiha Shisui suddenly felt that he was as small as an ant facing a high mountain. Masaka, is this the courage of Fusuke-sama? At that moment, Uchiha Shisui's pupils shrank suddenly, secretly calming his turbulent heart. This moment, Shisui felt a little ashamed in his heart. How dare he be so arrogant in front of the legend of Uchiha, is simply ridiculous. The Fusuke legendary tales that she heard when she was young once again came to Shisui's mind. Recalling those deeds that could be called miraculous, Shuiyuan felt a little swollen and his heart suddenly calmed down again. Instead, he felt admiration for Fusuke once again. Don't care about emotion. Next, Shisui explained the effects of his Mangekyo ability, distinguished heavenly gods, to Fusuke and Minato. This is the situation. After Shisui finished speaking, Minato on the other side of him had a look of surprise and kept sighing. But Fusuke is still at ease and seems to understand everything. Looking at Uchiha Fusuke's unfathomable eyes, Shisui was already in admiration. He also became more and more convinced that his abandoning the darkness and turning to the light was the wisest choice. Looking at Uchiha Shisui in front of him with a righteous face and thick eyebrows and big eyes. Advertisement. Fusuke believed Shisui's words without too much doubt. Nothing else. Based on his understanding of Shisui's character, he was someone who would do such things as kill relatives for justice. Besides, Fusuke knew that what Uchiha Shisui told was true. But compared to Fusuke's unknown prophet, Minato found Shisui's behavior somewhat incomprehensible and even unbelievable. He doesn't understand. Why did Uchiha Shisui take such a big risk to take the initiative to expose his grandfather who seemed to be guaranteed to win and have the upper hand? After all, Uchiha Kagami had promised him that he would push him to the position of Hokage in the future. Facing the temptation of Hokage. But not everyone can be like Uchiha Fusuke, who can easily regard it as dung. Shisui, Uchiha Kagami is your grandfather. Why are you doing this? So at that moment, Minato asked Shisui directly. Hear the words. There was no hesitation on Shisui's thick-browed face, and he spoke extremely decisively. For the village, and for the Uchiha clan. I don't want to see innocent people die for my grandfather's ambition. Shisui said it extremely sincerely, and this was indeed what he was thinking in his heart. And he didn't say a word. That is, since Uchiha Kagami planned to be hostile to Fusuke and the village, Shisui did not think he could succeed. Seeing the sincerity in Shisui's eyes, Minato also gave up his doubts and chose to completely believe Shisui. A hint of emotion flashed across Minato's face. He didn't expect that. Among the Uchiha clan, there is actually a person like Shisui who loves the village and is willing to kill relatives for justice. Seeing the emotional expression on Minato's face, Shisui couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. He knew that he had passed the test, now. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he did hear an elegant and plain voice reach his ears. Gone. It was these two short words that made Shisui's heart pick up in her throat again. He raised his head and glanced at Uchiha Fusuke on the other side. But all he saw was an extremely calm look. But just such a look made the unpredictable Shisui feel more and more uneasy. Why do you ask, Fusuke-sama? Did he see something? At this time, cold sweat broke out on Shisui's spine. Suddenly, another charming voice seemed to appear in his ears. Whatever he asks you, tell him the truth. But there is only one thing, that is, you must never reveal anything about me. Shisui's eyes flashed violently, and all kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he didn't know how to speak. He was afraid that if he said the wrong word, everything would be exposed to Fang's eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything. Uchiha Fusuke looked at Shisui's erratic eyes, with a hint of deep concern in his eyes. He didn't feel that what Shisui just said and his love for the village were false. It's just that all this is a bit too coincidental. If Shisui had already had his heart set on the bright future, why didn't he expose Uchiha Kageme's ambition earlier? But he waited until he had almost completed the investigation and was ready to take action before he came over to exterminate relatives for justice. It was like he was ready to take action. Just step on the spot and give him a stately reason to do it. Thinking of this, Fusuke casually tried to trick Shisui. Unexpectedly, this deception really exposed Shisui's flaws. But at this moment, Fusuke suddenly thought of something, which also made his heart feel complicated. While Shisui was thinking about how to answer. But I heard that elegant and indifferent voice again. Everyone has a secret, as long as you don't harm the village or the innocent people in the village. Hearing this, Uchiha's body moved. A trace of extremely complex emotions emerged in his heart. It feels like being moved, and also like the joy of being recognized and understood. Yes. At that moment, Shisui lowered his head suddenly and bowed respectfully to Uchiha Fusuke. Look up again. Uchiha Shisui looked at Fusuke with eyes full of kindness and admiration. Please rest assured, third generation Sama. I will fight to the death for the sake of the village. Shisui looked directly at Fusuke and said in an extremely excited voice. Looking at the excited Uchiha Shisui, a strange color flashed in Minato's eyes. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that even though Shisui says everything is a village. But the respect in his eyes was exactly that of Uchiha Fusuke's. Not only Minato, but also Fusuke's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't know what he had done. Inexplicably, such a little fanboy appeared. Back. Fusuke can only boil it all down to, it's all his damn charm. See, Uchiha Shisui is so wise. Fusuke just casually established a relationship. Advertisement. In terms of age and relationship, I can be considered your grandfather. No need to be so distant, just call me Grandpa Fusuke from now on. He never expected that with a flat A, the opponent would directly hand over his ultimate move. This. Thump. Yes. Fusuke-sama. Hearing this, Shisui knelt down on the ground in excitement and bowed his head directly. Uchiha Fusuke. Now that this is the case, what else can he say? I can only accept Shisui, the little brother, who is on the road. As the time approaches dusk, the silvery moonlight appears faintly in the sky. It seems that after a while, the color will completely cover the earth. At this time, Jiraiya, who was covered in stars and moonlight and looked a little dusty, finally returned to Konoha. As soon as he entered Konoha, Jiraiya smelled a chilling atmosphere in the streets. Jiraiya looked at the left and right sides, a trace of doubt flashing in his eyes. He only felt that tonight, the bustling Konoha seemed to become a little deserted. In front of the main gate of Konoha, Master Jiraiya, welcome back. An Anbu ninja who had been waiting here for a long time came up to him immediately. Seeing this Anbu, Jiraiya was not too surprised. He just nodded slightly towards Anbu. Because before he came back, he notified the village through Mount Myoboku. It was expected that the village would send people to wait here for him. Jiraiya-sama, this is a mission issued to you personally by third generation Sama. Please accept it. Suddenly, the enemy handed a mission scroll to Jiraiya's hand. Isn't the old man no longer in charge? Why did you give me a mission? Jiraiya raised his eyebrows and opened the scroll while muttering. After quickly browsing the information in the scroll, Jiraiya's expression gradually changed from cynical to serious. I see. After reading the scroll, Jiraiya nodded seriously to the Anbu ninja in front of him. Then, he immediately rushed in one direction at high speed. That's where the Uchiha tribe is. Dash. As soon as the sky turned dark, Jiraiya rushed to the designated location according to the content in the scroll. At this moment, on the outskirts of the Uchiha tribe, countless Anbu elites have already surrounded the Uchiha tribe. As soon as Jiraiya arrived, he bumped into Hatake Tsukumo, who was in charge here. Hatake Tsukumo, it's you. The moment he saw Hatake Tsukumo, Jiraiya subconsciously understood. Then, a trace of extremely obvious rejection and disgust flashed across his face. At that moment, Hatake Tsukumo's eyes flashed with helplessness. It's you, Jiraiya. He said hello to Jiraiya feebly. Snort. But unexpectedly, Jiraiya just snorted after hearing the sound. I have no intention of taking a serious look at Hitaki 3.0 Tsukumo. Hitaki Tsukumo. He opened his mouth, intending to say something, but finally closed his mouth. The feud between Hero Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, and Konoha's White Fang, is not a secret in Konoha. As for why exactly, there are still different opinions. But in fact, except for Jiraiya himself, no one knows when the grievance between the two of them was forged. This includes Hitaki Tsukumo. Tsukumo only remembered. Suddenly one day, Jiraiya, who originally had great respect for him, suddenly became unusually hostile to him. This kept Hitaki Tsukumo confused. He wanted to ask Jiraiya several times, but every time he asked, Jiraiya would grit his teeth and reply to him, "Scum. Brute. You'd better be careful walking on the road at night." Even so, the good-tempered Tsukumo didn't take the initiative to apologize. But unexpectedly, Jiraiya still didn't buy his account, but instead gnashed his teeth and cursed angrily. Fraud. Hypocritical. I'm going to skin you one day. After several times, even a clay figure will inevitably get angry at being scolded, let alone Hitaki Tsukumo. Ever since, the relationship between the two began to plummet into the abyss. Until later, Sannin left one after another. Hitaki Tsukumo also gradually lost contact with Jiraiya, and he forgot about this group. What I didn't expect was, long time no see. When Jiraiya saw him, he was still so angry. Thinking that after all these years, Jiraiya still hasn't let go of the resentment in his heart, Hitaki Tsukumo felt helpless.